to yield the floor to her to continue with the rest of the event. I'm just checking if she has come in. Okay, she's not in yet. Okay, so welcome to this event. And we have our presenters, our speakers already on the call, and we thank you for joining us this early. So our theme for today is building sustainable refinery capacity in Nigeria, energy infrastructure challenges, and the future. Our speakers will delve into this today. Each of them are going to speak on respective topics, and we're going to have value for attending today's event. Okay, so our MC for today, obviously not me. So when she comes in, she will take after me. Thank you. So these are synopses for today. Over the last 4 decades, Nigeria has consistently struggled to keep its refineries functioning optimally, despite having a nameplate refining capacity that exceeds demand. Nigeria ranks as the 3rd highest importer of petroleum products in Africa, importing over 80% of products consumed. In 2021, the Nigerian government embarked upon a program to encourage private investments in the oil and gas industry to sustain long-term economic growth. This led to the issuance of permits and licenses to private investors for the establishment of private refineries, gas recovery and processing plants, as well as natural gas and independent power plants, IPP. The product of this initiative is the establishment of some modular refineries across the country. Some of the notable modular refineries that have commenced or soon to commence operation include Watersmith Refining and Petrochemical Company, 5,000 barrels per day, Aradel, 11,000 barrels per day, Opak Refinery, 10,000 barrels per day, and Edo Refinery and Petrochemical Company, 6,000 barrels per day. While modular refineries offer several benefits for Nigeria, such as reducing import dependency, creating jobs, boosting local content, the curbing of illegal refinery, they are, however, plagued with constraints such as high capital and operational costs, limited product range, lack of product supply, dependence on imported technology, and irregular orders. Similarly, the government issued licenses for large-scale refineries such as Dangote and Boa Refinery. The Dangote Refinery having commenced production. There have been hopes that Nigeria can meet her energy demands and have room to export to other African countries. Despite the setbacks, the inherent opportunity for Nigeria's erstwhile dormant refining sector holds bright prospects for the future, and recognition of key drivers will accelerate the imminent refining revolution. This technical forum is organized to address the persisting refinery issues in Nigeria and its debilitating effects on the economy. Subject experts on refineries have been invited to discuss the conventional refineries and modular technology solutions. Gentlemen and ladies, it's our synopsis for today. I thank you for joining us. We'll move straight up to the next, which is safety moment. And we'll have a few of them dealing with stress. I mean, stress is part of life, but if you nuggets here, put your body in motion, fuel up first, whatever that means, eat, drink water, run, do exercise, whatever that means, but fuel up first is quite important. LOL, laugh out loud. Yeah, great for everyone to laugh. Let off the steam, okay? Have fun with friends. Spill to someone you trust. Don't forget the last part, someone you trust, okay? Before you hit the pages of social media and newspapers, whatever that means. Now, point 6, take time to chill. Then catch some catch some sleep. Sleep is good. Keep a journal, get it together, so have a plan. Then lady hand. Okay. We'll take the national anthem, gentlemen and ladies. Wherever you are, whatever positions you want to take, let's take the national anthem. Okay. God bless Nigeria. Thank you very much. Give me a moment. Let me quickly check if the MC is here now so that we switch jet. Thank you. Okay. The MC is here. Atoyabi, please confirm you can hear us. Confirm you can hear me. Okay. Confirm now you can hear me. Okay. Okay. So we'll move on. I will come back to see if it's sorted out. Okay. Thank you. We'll take the opening remarks, and we have our very erudite section chair, Mr. B. Awotiku. Oluwa B. Awotiku, the floor is yours for the opening remarks and welcome speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Odion. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's indeed my privilege to welcome you to this technical forum. When we first started thinking about this technical forum to put it together, we had in mind to be able to, address, core technical topics. And one more topic we'll be talking about or addressing other than talking about refineries in Nigeria and how to better build, sustainable refinery capacity for our dear nation, Nigeria. And so it's indeed, a very great privilege for SPE Lagos section to be having this topic and discussing this great, theme today. This great theme, we've also carved out 3 important topics and looking at the different areas and facets of refinery in Nigeria. The first one being the modular refinery, which seems like more a quick win for the country, and to be able to ensure that our stranded resources and even resources that are not stranded can easily be quickly and converted to products that can be pushed into the domestic markets in Nigeria easily. We've had companies who have thrived, who have been able to get modular refineries working, and who have been able to put a lot into getting modular refineries to work. And so it's our privilege to also have this discussion on modular refineries to be able to think of how we can move from scarcity to surplus by leveraging modular refineries for our energy sustainability. So it's indeed a great topic that we'll be having today, and we have a very wonderful speaker who will be speaking on this. Secondly, we thought about our country, Nigeria. We've had these big refineries, and we have about 4 of them, the KRPC, the BRPC, the LMA, and also the Kaduna refinery. But we've not been able to get these refineries to function at capacity or to even function or get crude out. And this is due to several issues: lack of investment, sometimes turnaround maintenance that were not properly done. But a lot is being put into that, and we want to speak to address those challenges. Also in the refineries that the government owned, that owned by the NNPC Limited. Also, we thought about the third one, which is having the private refineries and big refineries, and we have the Dangote refinery coming on board now, and so we wanted to also discuss on that. There's also the Bua refinery also being planned. So we wanted to have a holistic discussion on how we can move our refineries into functioning refineries, from just being moribund to functioning. And so the different things that involves that will involve in terms of upgrading and modernizing the equipment, this is going to be done. How do we get the right finances to get this done? How do we get them to operate reliably and safely? How do we get the units that have not been operational to become operational? And we have experts who will be speaking on this today. How do we implement best practices from countries who have been able to get this done, who have been able to over the years get several refineries built and even get them functioning? Also, how do we diversify our product mix and ensure that we can get the right product supply to be able to feed into these refineries and get them functioning well? How do we even address, the poor management, the security threats? And so all these are going to be discussed, in this technical forum. And we are glad to have, 3 great speakers who are, generals, in their fields, who have done it, and not just people who are, going to just be speaking from theoretical knowledge, but people who are speaking from practical knowledge. So I believe we have a great time today. We are going to learn a lot. I'm personally looking forward to, something great coming out of this technical forum today, to be able to get Nigeria into the right place that we should be in terms of energy sustainability. I'd like to appreciate the special projects team who have put this together and who have been working tirelessly over the past weeks to get this done today. So thank you very much, everyone, and I wish us a successful and a wonderful learning and technical deliberation today. Over to you, MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Section Chair, SPE Lagos, Mr. Oluwabi Awutiku, for the opening remarks. I know the MC has joined now, so Olamide, please carry on. Okay, for some reasons, I think her network has gone. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. Okay, thank you, Section Chair. Yeah. So we'll do the introduction of speakers. And our first speaker for today, again, I reiterate, is a technical forum, and the format is we introduce the speaker makes his presentation, we introduce the next speaker, he makes his presentation, and we introduce the third speaker, and the third speaker makes his presentation. And there's going to be a time where all speakers would stay, and a question and answer and discussion forum is now going to commence. So we're going to be listening to our first speaker for today. We are very happy to have Mr. Chikezo Owonsu as our first speaker for today. Mr. Chikezo Owonsu is the founder and CEO HSI Energies and EVP Business Development, Tolai BV, the Netherlands. Mr. Chikezo Owonsu is an experienced senior executive with over 32 years local and international experience in the energy industry with demonstrated expertise in the management of upstream oil and gas projects, new business development, divestments and acquisitions, midstream gas, downstream refining, and renewable energy strategies. Mr. Wilson has worked with leading international oil and gas services and ERP companies, including Western Atlas, now Baker Atlas, for over 5 years, regional discipline manager, Shell Nigeria, Sub-Saharan Africa and International for 16 years, deputy managing director, technical, Sinopec, Adax Petroleum Nigeria, over 6 years, EVP business development, Tulea Energy BV since 2019, and recently managing director and chief executive officer. In 2021, Mr. Chikezo Owusu was recognized as the Nigeria Oil and Gas CEO of the Year, integrated by a reputable Business Day of Nigeria, and has been profiled by Forbes Africa, Africa Oil and Gas Magazine, Foreign Investment Network UK, the Energy Year, the Business Year, and many other energy and investment magazines. Mr. Chikezo also retired from Watersmith Petroleum Oil Limited, Petroman Oil Limited in March 2023 after delivering the first 5,000 barrels per day modular refinery in Nigeria, leading the acquisition of the 100 MMB Boy Block EG23 in Equatorial Guinea in 2020, a Granda 2019 bid round, the 20 MMBBL Asa Marginal Field in 2021, and supporting the acquisition of Shell Petroleum Development Nigeria by Renaissance Africa Energy Company, a consortium with Watersmith Petroleum as a partner, thereby setting the company on its growth trajectory. In addition, he developed the renewable energy and sustainability strategies for Watersmith, culminating in the Eco Industrial and Innovation Park project with UNIDO in support of its energy transition strategy from fossil fuels to renewable energy for industrial use. Mr. Chikezo Owusu is the co-founder and currently Group Chief Executive Officer of HSI Energies, whose subsidiary HSI Refining and Petrochemical Limited is building the 5,000 BOPD Abia State refinery in Owaza, Abia State. He also currently sits on the board of HSI Energies, Tulea BV, Sage View, Insight Oil and Gas Consortium, and the board of I think I just missed that because something's covering it here. But I definitely will read all Mr. Chikezo Owusu's profile, that last line on his presentation slide. So gentlemen and ladies, excuse me, with a virtual clap, let's make welcome Mr. Chikezo Owusu as take us on the presentation, leveraging modular refineries for sustainability. Okay, that last part, I need to finish it, okay? He currently sits on the board of HSI Energies, Tulea BV, Sage View, Insight Oil and Gas Consultants, and board advisory committee of the largest wholly indigenous integrated energy company, Hess Energies. The floor is yours, Mr. Chikezo Owusu. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, I think we lost him at a point. Okay, I see him now. Sir, if you can hear me, please.
Aha. Okay, I was muted. I wasn't allowed to unmute myself. So, can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to go through some very topical issues that have to do with refining in general in Nigeria, and may focus a little bit at the end on modular refining. This is the outline of the presentation. We need to understand the macroeconomic situation within the country and why it is critical to have domestic refining. We also need to understand the global challenges in the oil and gas industry that will be facing us, or they're actually facing us now, and will also face us as we go forward. And then we'll focus on the Nigerian oil and gas industry. I'll talk about something around the regulators, in this case, NMDPRA, that is, I'll call them the authority, who are very critical for domestic refining. I'll then show you a little bit about what this value chain in the downstream looks like in Nigeria, and then focus on the Nigeria refining subsector. And then I'll end up by giving you an idea of, the supply and demand, nature of the petroleum product pipeline. So if you go to the next slide. Next slide after this. So this is the macroeconomic landscape in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Here, I've tried to present this as a personal analysis, and this is work that we did together with a consultant. A lot of people externally actually think that the political climate in Nigeria has been relatively stable. Of course, when you ask Nigerians, they have a different opinion, but we've been democratic, or we've continued with our democratic system of governance and certain economic policies for development since 1999. And within the West Africa region, where you see a lot of turmoil happening with coups and counter coups, this is considered as a politically stable environment. Now, the enabling business environment also relies on this political stability. So the implications for refiners here will be that refineries will benefit from these initiatives and policies by the continued democratic governance. An example of that is how the PIA evolved. And although there were changes in government, one of the things that everybody was aware was that the traction on the PIA continued. It took a long time, but we finally got to a signed-off act at the end of it. And this kind of policy initiatives within that political environment provide some stability. The economy is expected to rebound. It's slow, yeah? And we have not made as much as we could have from the oil prices. And, this is primarily because we have not been producing as much as we could. And we're also affected in our economy by this exchange rate volatility that we're seeing with the Nigerian naira. But hopefully this is going to stabilize. For refining, this is actually neutral, especially the exchange rate volatility. A lot of people think, oh, with this exchange rate volatility and the fact that a lot of the equipment is brought in with dollars, how are you going to manage? Well, the thing is that if you place yourself strategically well enough in this modular refining sector, this is not that much of a challenge, because some of the product prices, especially diesel, AGO, and to some extent household kerosene or dual purpose kerosene, are adjusting, and still give you a reasonable gross profit margin irrespective of this volatility. So they counter some of the forex volatility you see. Unfortunately, this has an adverse impact on the ability of Nigerians to purchase these products. And that's why, although it is not a direct impact on refining, we have to take care of the fact that, or still have in mind the fact that this has an adversely negative effect on the socioeconomic life within the country itself. In terms of social, there is an increase in population. We'll talk about that population increase that is expected to happen in Nigeria, and therefore there will be even more demand for these energy products. And again, that is a very positive one for refining, domestic refining. In terms of technology, it's neutral. A lot of the technology, apart from the outside battery limit, which are these tank farms and the piping, are imported into Nigeria. And hopefully, as we expand and start doing some of these industrial parks, one of the motives of the Abia State Industrial Innovation Park and also the one in Imo State, driven by Walter Smith, is to be able to manufacture some of these components for modular refineries in country, driven again by a partnership with the NCDMB. Nigeria's legal landscape is improving. And, there's a lot that is going on with respect to honoring, contracts, honoring the terms of the PIA. And we continue to hope that with the focus on making sure that the enabling business environment is there, that more investments will come into this modular refining area and refining in general, into domestic refining. In terms of environmental, we're all aware of the push towards moving away from fossil fuels. But one of the things I consistently say is that although production of oil and gas, oil especially, may be affected, refining will lag this by maybe 5 years to 10 years. And therefore, there is still a need for this refined project, even as we think about how we transition into lower carbon emission products. And I'll come to that at the end, where I discuss some technologies that have, you can convert gas, for example, to diesel. And those are lower carbon emission processes and products as well. So we have to keep an eye on these environmental concerns. Next slide. Now, a lot of what I have mentioned there under the pedestal, I'll go into a little more detail. Nigeria is, of course, Africa's largest market, with a significantly growing population and rising urbanization rates. And this will drive consumer demand. It's expected that the total population in Nigeria will increase in the next 7 years by a total of 36 million people. That is huge. It's also expected that urbanization rates in Nigeria will surpass 70% by 2050. Urbanization rates, as calculated by 2022, currently lie at 54%. The implication for refiners in all this is that the demand will continue to grow. And therefore, we have to be able to situate ourselves in such a way that we are able to deliver on the supply end of things. Again, if you look at the demographics of this increase, the majority of the distribution falls in the range of 15 to 64, which is the range where most people will demand a lot of energy use, and also is the range in which a lot of the expertise, the 60-year-olds and to 64-year-olds are where people like us sit, who have had a career of 30 to 40 years. And of course, the 15-year-olds coming up are where a lot of the technical expertise, a lot of the vigor, a lot of the energy will come from for us to be able to sustain this growing energy demand. Next slide. Now, these are some of the macroeconomic variables that we have to contend with. Our GDP growth rate is medium. I wouldn't say it's something to write home about. We would have to meet GDP growth rates of about 8% or more, based on what we expect to be the energy demand as our population grows and our energy demand grows. Our exchange rates between the parallel and the official is narrowing, but it's still very volatile. But we hope with some of the monetary and fiscal policies that are being rolled out and the ability of, the industrial revolution that we are going to have to go through to produce and export and rebalance the trade imbalances we currently see, that this will lead to stabilization. Nobody knows what rate it will stabilize at, but at least it will stabilize. The oil sector growth rate is higher than the GDP growth rate, but could be higher. It's at 12.1%, but we have several challenges. This should be easily at about 20% with the right investments coming in. Our oil production has been very, very dismal because we have the ability to produce over 2 million barrels of oil per day, but by the end of March 2024, we're barely doing 1.2 million barrels, which was a drop from the 1.32 in the previous month, which was February. Now, we understand that we have suddenly picked at 1.7 million barrels of oil per day of recent, and we hope that this can be sustained. The oil price has been really stable and high, but we haven't had the benefits of this high oil price especially because of our limited and dismal oil production. Our oil GDP contribution is still significant, 4.7%, but can grow with domestic refining, because this is mainly about, the earnings that we get from oil and some of the other, secondary impacts of the production of oil and gas, but not really around domestic refining and domestic energy consumption. And lastly, our inflationary rates have gone from about 31.7% to 33.2%, and I hope we're able to stabilize it at this. The CBN monetary policies have, come in with an adjustment of interest rates to try to, change that impact. Now, all these things, and I also talked about the relative political stability and the continuity of a democratic system. So whenever Nigerians are arguing about democracy and its challenges, we keep saying that let's continue with this experiment, because it creates the enabling environment for investments to come into Nigeria. And those investments are critical for refiners. A lot of the funding for refining is coming from external parties. And a lot of the African sources of funding are dependent on that political stability in Nigeria. A lot of the international funding is also dependent on that. So that political stability is a positive for us to attract foreign direct investments into the domestic refining business. Next slide. Now, there are certain, ambitions that the current administration has set out. And there's a target of $1 trillion GDP. And basically that would mean doubling or more than doubling the economy from the current 450 billion GDP to 1 trillion. Now, we intend to achieve a 7% average annual GDP growth. So you can see when I said that 3.46% is not what the target is. Lifting people out of poverty, creating the enabling environment to generate 50 million jobs and deliver sustained inclusive growth. All of this link into the ability to consume the oil production that we have and also the gas production. So it is basically around the conversion of these energy resources into energy consumption within the country. Ramp up production to over 4 million barrels per day, which is possible based on the reserves base that we're sitting on, and increase LNG production from the current 22 metric tons or million metric tons per annum to about 40 million metric tons per annum. Now, all this, are directly related to what modular refineries and refineries in general are trying to achieve. Trying to make sure that instead of importing these petroleum products and leaving the margins of profits with those who are refining abroad, that we concentrate that refining within the country and utilize all that gross margin within our own domestic market to grow our GDP. So it is critical that the government continue to support the policies of both modular refineries and domestic refining. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, I will go over this very quickly. These reforms are expected to shape key sectors, and one of the key sectors that it is supposed to, affect is refining. So apart from, the policies, domestic savings that will come from the growth in refining, for example, we will not have to spend a lot of foreign exchange earnings trying to pay for imported petroleum products. The macroeconomic environment will improve once we start consuming more and more affordable energy. And, some of the sectoral reforms that are dependent on being able to, generate more energy, more electricity will come about. And we expect that the capital markets themselves within the country will start outperforming the current situation that we are under. And, so directly linked to the policy reforms of government are the ability to refine domestically and consume those products. Now, I will skip through the rest of the slides so I can get to the meat of the conversation about domestic refining. Next slide. Okay, global oil production has stayed roughly above 4.2 million tons, sorry, of production. Yeah. And so this is million metric tons of production with the peak around 2018. So this is more or less stable. There's no problem with the supply side. And there've been certain fluctuations based on the global energy transition, geopolitics, the problem between Russia and Ukraine. But it's to be noted that all these arguments about the impacts on fossil fuels has not yet been seen. And the expectation is that it will not be seen in the very near future. Maybe in the next couple of decades, we'll start seeing a significant effect, but at the moment, it has come to the realization of most parties that the dependence on fossil fuel energies and petroleum products that result from it will continue for quite some time. Next slide. But all refiners, everybody in the oil and gas industry, SPE, must keep an eye on some of the disruptive factors that we expect to impact global oil production. The energy transition I've mentioned, the growing adoption of critical minerals, so things like lithium, mining of lithium, using it for lithium batteries, and it supports the transition to solar energy. And so we have to keep an eye on some of these impacts as well. We say it will not happen now, but it's important to understand that it will be coming. There's a shift in global energy trade, with renewables playing more and more of a role. The adaptation of technology, like I mentioned before, Africa has to get beyond, and Nigeria has to get beyond just adopting technology. But we are in a good situation now where artificial intelligence, which is a place that we should be playing in, robotics and all that, can be used in things like predictive maintenance and ensure that we can reduce the cost of our operations within Nigeria. So there are certain business to technology areas that can lead to significant cost savings and improving operational reliability. And we should keep our eyes on these as well, especially for refining. And the policy and regulatory environment under which we live is becoming more challenging. So even as we talk about our PIA, there are other areas around the world, in Africa, especially in Namibia, where they are going into fiscal terms that will challenge us. And we have to make sure that our PIA is dynamic enough to ensure that we continue to have an edge over a number of these countries. Next slide. Okay, so despite all these trends and challenges, the industry, the demand for petroleum products is expected to persist. That's the message. Yeah, so let's stop panicking and let's now focus on what we need to do. Next slide. This tells the same story, that overall world supply, oil supply is predicted to grow. Okay. And let's now focus on our own oil and gas sector. Next slide, please. Now, in our Nigerian oil and gas sector, it encompasses upstream, midstream, and downstream sectors, and there are various players. The regulators, NUPRC and NMDPRA, play a significant role in enabling businesses here. Now, we are used to, in Nigeria, with upstream and treating oil and gas as commodities for sale. That does not in any way add the required value to our gross domestic product. You will find out that by refining this product, oil and gas, into LNG, CNG, and all the other petroleum products, that you add more to your GDP, especially as you consume a lot of these products within your economy as well. In terms of the midstream, we have significant challenges. Our road networks are difficult, so tanker transportation or road transportation is very challenging. We also have challenges with respect to our pipeline network. I will show you some pictures to show that we have, with the kind of oil volumes and product volumes that we expect, we have very limited pipeline infrastructure, and that has to be worked on. And then finally, as the introduction that was originally made before I started my presentation, although we have inbuilt refining capacity, the functional production is much less than the demand at this time. So what you have as nameplate may be more than demand, but what you have as actual production is much less than demand. And so within that refining space, it is very critical that we have a mix of large refineries like Dangote and modular refineries like Walter Smith, Aradel, and there are a lot of them, Ezekiel, and now HSI Energies in Abia State. Next slide. Now, we already talked about the oil sector's impact on the GDP, and we expect that to continue to increase. But the greatest increase in this will be from modular refining and other refining. So you will start to see the impact of the Dangote refinery and the modular refineries on our GDP as more of them actually start spotting the horizon, and we start significant volumes of domestic refining. Again, the resuscitation of our refineries in Port Harcourt, Kaduna, and Warri are also critical to this picture. Next slide. One of the areas of concern is our country's declining daily oil production, but this is mainly around export production, because the potential to do 2 million barrels of oil per day exists. But the challenges that you have with respect to the pipelines, the TMP, the NCTN, and all that mean that we cannot achieve that production potential we have. The other part of the decline is that investments have started drying up to arrest the normal decline of production that is expected with some of these mature assets. Now, you can see the impact this has had with respect to even the Dangote refinery, where the reports are that Dangote is now importing crude oil from the United States of America. Now, it's important to note that this domestic refining journey that we're on requires that at the same time, the upstream sector manages to deliver the over 2 million barrels of oil per day required to sustain domestic refining. One of the biggest challenges of any domestic refinery, they'll tell you that, is the crude feedstock. Where are you going to get the crude feedstock for? And it's important to note that it's not as if the potential for that production does not exist. It does exist. Yeah. And, you have to position your modular refineries in a strategic way to take into account the fact that the nearby oil fields do not want to go on the Trans-Niger pipeline, because that Trans-Niger pipeline has a lot of issues, of vandalization, crude theft, and all that. So you have to position them in such a way that they provide a solution. They provide a solution to exporting through the Trans-Niger pipeline or the NCTL. This is a strategy that a lot of modular refineries have adopted. So if you look at the Bigwe refinery of Walter Smith, it is located where Ohaji South field is, the Walter Smith Bigwe field, and the Asa North field. So it takes care of that zone of production. If you look at Aradel, it's where Niger Delta, ENP, or Aradel now, has its own Ogbele field. If you look at Ezekiel, it is located near the Baran oil field, where the condensate from the Baran oil field or the Baran gas fields are going into the Ezekiel refinery, and so on and so forth. Some of the domestic refiners who have positioned their refineries in such a way that they do not have direct access to oil fields are suffering that impact now. I don't want to call names, but some of them have to truck crude as much as 300 kilometers away for them to be able to refine. And this is the problem of the deficit of the pipeline infrastructure to take the crude oil from where it is located in the Niger Delta to where these refineries are also located. And that problem has to be addressed together with the decline in oil production. Next slide. Next slide. So the decline in production has, of course, prevented us from whatever gains, we would have from this high oil price. Now, despite this, the oil and gas sector still accounts for over 90% of the total export trade. But this is export trade. And the point I keep making is that domestic consumption is much better for your GDP than just treating oil and gas as commodities. Next slide. Next slide, please. Deregulation is also very critical. Now, all but one of the petroleum products has been deregulated. Please, the previous slide. Hello? The previous slide. All but one of the petroleum products has been fully deregulated. The one that hasn't been fully deregulated is PMS. There's a partial deregulation. And that's why you see that a lot of these modular refineries are not producing PMS, because the additional funding and equipment required to take naphtha into PMS does not justify the partial subsidy that still remains on PMS. And therefore, until the total removal of subsidy on the PMS, you will not see modular refiners trying to build these modular refineries with the required equipment to convert naphtha to PMS. So the products will remain concentrated on the deregulated products of AGO, household kerosene, and fuel oils. Next slide. Okay, the regulatory assessment here is mainly focused on the NMDPRA. Now, please note that the Petroleum Industry Act has three major governance frameworks: the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, the NMDPRA, or what we call the authority, and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited. We'll focus on the NMDPRA because the NMDPRA plays a critical role in domestic refining. Yeah, they actually do have a source of funds where they charge 0.5% of the whole sale price of petroleum products and natural gas sold domestically, their gas flaring fees and everything that they collect, and those are available for infrastructure investments. And those should be the target of building the necessary pipeline infrastructure to deliver crude oil to whatever location modular refineries are placed in. They are also critical in terms of the fiscal framework around modular refineries. And they have given a lot of advantages to modular refineries in terms of tax havens that people can rely on to make sure that these things are profitable from the start. So the regulatory framework is important, and the PIA has put in place things that, if properly implemented, should help with this domestic refining. Next slide. Now, there are a couple of things I want to take away that are critical for refining from the authority. Now, you have to make sure that you follow through on the operational guidelines, compliance monitoring and reporting, and the regulatory engagement and continuous improvement. So it's important that you have systems in your modular refineries for controlling emissions. That is what distinguishes us from the illegal refineries, where you can just burn any of the products. We're not allowed to do that. There have to be comprehensive safety protocols, effective waste management systems, and you have to properly train your employees on safety, environmental protection, and regulatory compliance. That is the environmental part of modular refining under the guidelines of the authority. There is compliance monitoring and reporting. There is robust reporting mechanisms that have been put in place to track and ensure compliance. So when people think that these modular refineries are getting away with substandard products and all that, it is not true. The products are monitored as much as they are for larger refineries. Regular internal and external audits are carried out, and accurate documentation of all the processes, emissions, and safety measures are also done. And finally, the regulatory engagement and continuous improvement will continue, because the authority believes that they are business enablers. They want us to minimize the impact on neighboring areas, engage local communities, make sure that we don't go into the same situation that upstream companies found themselves. We have emergency response plans to make sure that when there are any spillages, we can respond immediately to that and also contain those effectively. And we must align all our operations with the requirements of all the specific legislation that's available. So these guidelines for the authority are the guidelines under which all domestic refineries will have to operate. As we comply with these guidelines, we can leverage the domestic crude supply obligation. So there's now a domestic crude supply obligation regulation of the NUPRC to ensure reliable supply of feedstock. Basically, what it means is that if there is a modular refinery sited anywhere near a producing asset, that producing asset, or OML, it has to comply with the domestic crude supply obligation, and the potential buyers of this oil, the oil refineries, once they're available, the lessee will not receive an export permit. So that means you will not be allowed to export your crude as an operator in Nigeria if there is a refinery next to you that can buy your crude. And this buying of your crude is not that it necessarily has to be done in Nigerian naira. No. Although, it says that the currency of payment can be Nigerian naira or United States dollars, whatever you negotiate with the OML. So it's not that it's being forced on them. It's just that if there's a refinery next to you, why do you then have to go ahead and export your crude when you can get paid in the same way, avoid the CHH charges on the pipeline, and also encourage domestic refining and encourage the growth of the GDP? So this is a very critical, part of the legislation coming from NUPRC about domestic crude supply obligation. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so the Nigerian downstream supply distribution network, as I've mentioned, is fraught with problems. Okay, there are storage limitations. I've talked about some logistics problems with respect to distribution. The pipeline network is not sufficient. Waterway transport is available, but again, there's a lot of dredging that has to be done to make access for some of these large tankers that deliver some of these petroleum products to be able to do that. And road transport is fraught with dangers. The security of the transportation of these trucks on roads, the quality of roads that we have. So there are a lot of challenges within the downstream supply and distribution network. And I'll try and go through a number of them very quickly. Next slide. Now, we have to stop this importation of petroleum products, the massive importation of petroleum products, okay? Because it is not helping our economy. We still import over 80% of our refined products to meet our current demands, yeah? And this is despite having a nameplate capacity that should meet our domestic demand. So we have to find a way to replace this process of importation of these petroleum products with domestic refining. Next slide. I'll skip through a couple of slides. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, now what you find out is that there's a high concentration of depots in the Southwest. And that's why a couple of modular refineries now, please, previous slide, are focusing on the South-South and the Southeast. Now, if you look at this slide with the pipeline network, the black pipelines are pipelines that are in existence. So, sorry, the previous slide. Or the next slide, where it shows the pipeline network. Okay, the black pipelines are pipelines that are in existence, but the status of those pipelines are unknown. The red ones are 40 pipelines. So you can see that the pipeline infrastructure that we have, the Nigerian pipeline network, is not good enough for us to go through with this domestic refining policy and support domestic refineries all around the country. The northern part of the country does not have enough of these pipeline networks to deliver crude to them. They're either not functional or the states are not known. And the only refining there that you see there is the Kaduna refinery, yeah? And therefore, we have to make sure that that infrastructure fund that's available through the authority is deployed to make sure that there is a connection of product pipeline networks everywhere around the country. That challenge has to be addressed. Next slide. Next slide. Road and marine transports. These have to also be addressed because this is all part of the distribution network of these petroleum products. And so, because of the vandalization of pipelines, their underutilization and all that, we have to also rely on virtual pipelines. And this comes through road and marine transportation. So the state of our roads are not good enough. And that's why this coastal road network is good. But we have to find other ways of repairing the existing roads as well. Next slide. Okay, the Southwest region, like I mentioned, has most of these, retail stations, the refineries are concentrated in a bulk of the refining capacity for products, well, not refining capacity, but products coming into the country, coming through the Southwest. And therefore, there's no, this thing that all the, trucking, the number of stations, storage capacity for PMS, AG, and DPK are concentrated in the southwestern part of the country. But we have to start leveraging on Port Harcourt and Warri, and also the pipeline network to the north to make sure that we can distribute storage equitably around the country. Next slide. So the existing downstream supply and distribution network structure sometimes results in substantial losses for downstream players. So all this trucking, on the roads, trucks fall over, spill petroleum products. You've heard a lot of those kind of stories. Those are not good enough. And that is linked into the fact that our structure of distribution of these petroleum products is not up to spec for us to start delivering on this domestic refining picture. So it's not just about the refineries, it's around the distribution of the products as well nationwide. Next slide. Okay, in the last few minutes, I'm just going to talk about our refining capacity. So this is what we have as nameplate refining capacity. Dangote, Kaduna, Warri, Port Harcourt, the old and the Port Harcourt new. Now, if you look at this nameplate refining capacity, you say that we have substantial capacity to deal with the domestic demand. However, as most of you know, none of these are at nameplates. Okay, so the average utilization of existing refineries in Nigeria in 2022 was just 7%. So although you have this capacity, you cannot bridge the gap of demand with just nameplate capacity. And that is the gap that modular refineries are supposed to fill. Apart from modular refineries being able to redistribute the products across the country, like I just mentioned about where you can, put them, instead of concentrating them in just sections like in Port Harcourt, in Warri, and in Kaduna, you can dump them anywhere in the country that you have access to crude oil production. Next slide. Next slide. We will listen intently to the Dangote refinery because I think we have Dangote here, so I'll not put too much emphasis on this, but that is a very positive development to have the Dangote refinery up and running. Even we in the modular refining area realize that Dangote is going to be a plus for us and not a negative, because there are quite a number of things that Dangote is going to be able to do to help us with ensuring that this downstream industry continues to grow and continues to make the necessary impact on the domestic refining and the GDP growth in Nigeria. Next slide. There have been a lot of refining licenses that have been granted, but again, you can see that we do not have the right capacity. So this is just a list. This is page 1 of the list. Next slide. This is page 2 of the list. And you'll find out that when you look at this carefully, there are a number of them that are there, but a lot of them are just announced or under plan and construction. So the actual ones in production are not that many. And therefore, there's a space for any player who wants to come into that market to be able to operate. Next slide. These are some of the challenges faced by especially modular refineries. Feedstock supply I've mentioned. The technical and engineering gap, a lot of the initial operations and maintenance, commissioning work, and even the crude distillation unit are foreign technologies and have to be maintained in that way as we grow the ability of our engineers to be able to bridge this gap. Security is also significant, especially when the modular refineries are located far away from the source of crude, requiring long pipeline networks. Those are also a problem. The market dynamics, economic volatility, oil price fluctuations, forex volatility, those affect all these areas. Funding is a major issue, and financing them. But it's important to note that there are so many areas to access fund. Ministry of Finance Incorporated, BOI, NCDMB, Afrexim Bank, AFC. There are so many of them that are African and Nigerian, and also international funding parties are also available for people that want to go into modular refinery. And last but not the least is the regulatory and permitting challenges. However, I found out that once you have your act together, the regulatory and permitting challenges that others may face, you will not face, because you have to, if you do things properly, use professional bodies to carry out all your evaluation analysis, including your engineering design and all that, it will be a simple matter to get the regulatory and permitting challenge or regulatory and permits from the authority itself and overcome those challenges. Next slide. These are some of the enablers and key success factors for modular refineries. Funding. Refining projects are capital intensive. For example, a 5,000 barrels of oil per day modular refinery can cost you as high as $50 million. And if you add other things like infill dehydration and pipelines, you might get as high as $70 to $80 million. It requires a lot of technical expertise. And you have to have a strong brand. So, when I went into this modular refining system with HSI, the brand that we're building, that we have been there and done it before. And that was leveraging on the Walter Smith experience. Walter Smith, Aradel have no challenges getting funding any longer because they have built a strong brand. They have shown the success of their modular refineries, and therefore, funding is not a challenge to them. So branding and the relationships you build are very important. Security is a continuous risk factor, and we have to, consider that while going into this business. Volatility of crude oil prices has already been mentioned. The exchange rate fluctuation is countered a little bit by the change in product pricing, and government regulations have to be stable. And so, you have to look at this map and make sure that you cover all the bases. Make sure that the enablers are helping you to build success in the business and that you contain the constraints and the risk factors. Next slide. This is the last of the slides. Now, there is a supply gap. And the supply gap is not about nameplate capacity. There's a significant supply gap because of the actual domestic production. The domestic consumption is about 87 million liters per day. The domestic production lies at about 1 to 2 million liters per day. So the supply gap is well over 80 million liters per day, and that is where these refineries have to sit, both the Dangote refinery and the modular refinery. So there is a business gap here. Now, even when the nameplate is met by all this, the Port Harcourt refinery, the Warri, the Kaduna refinery, there are still export opportunities. Next slide. Okay. Now, this just goes into the gap of the different products, but there's gap for all the products. Next slide. Next slide. We are currently in a low local refining utilization, and even when we go to a high local refining utilization, we have the ability to export the surplus of our petroleum products to the West African region and to Africa as a whole. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement helps us to make sure that we can leverage on that. A lot of these modular refineries are going into free trade zones where a lot of these custom duties and things will not apply to them. So even where we have high local refining utilization, there will be opportunities to export these products. So it's important to note that the nameplates and all the other modular refineries coming here will have a space to play in. Next slide. And this is my last slide. Finally, the persistent demand, just like I mentioned, across the West Africa region, presents great export opportunity for market players. And these market players are both modular refineries and the larger refineries as well. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Chikidze. That has been a phenomenal presentation. I, for one, feel like I should start to aspire to actually have a refining company as well. largely because you've made a business case in the same vein, highlighting for us what the real challenges are. And these are typically not things we can expect to just find run of the mill. And also realizing that we have the support of government in a sense to say that you will not be allowed to supply crude. You will not be allowed to supply crude if there is people who can actually, there are companies who can take that off of you. And some of these things, I must say, actually put to rest. Okay, I think someone is unmuted. Kenechukwu, if you could kindly mute yourself. All right, thank you. Okay, so we will be going on now to the next speaker. I imagine we have a number of questions to ask just from the last session we've had. So please keep your questions noted down. At the end of the session stretch, we will take questions. So now we've heard about the potentials. We've heard about what the country is doing. We also know that oil and gas in Nigeria has come to stay, and there are opportunities there. So now let's hear it from Engineer Ahmed Diko. Is the former advisor to GCO NNPCL on refineries rehabilitation, and this topic it will be taking us through is one that I imagine would be also very insightful. From potential to production, how do we really unlock Nigeria's refinery capacity? Engineer Ahmed Diko is an experienced professional with a background in chemical engineering and extensive knowledge in project management, process engineering, and plant operations. He recently retired as the advisor to the group CEO of NNPC Limited on refineries rehabilitation, where he advises the CEO on rehabilitation projects for 4 refineries in Nigeria. Engineer Diko has previously held positions as Managing Director of Port Harcourt Refining Company Limited and General Manager, New LNG Project at NLNG. He has received several commendations and awards for his contributions to the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, and he will be talking us through how we move from potential to production. So over to you now, Sir Engineer Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Olamide, I can imagine he's been on since. I think his network has knocked him out. I can't see him as
okay.
Yeah.
I was even just looking out for him as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just one moment while we try to reach him.
that's not.
Hi, Odion. Hi, Olamide. So I just called Mr. Ahmed Diko, so he's going to join like a minute. He's having a network challenge.
Okay, thank you, Asana, for that update. And to the participants as well, I think now is the time to just mentally take a note or have your notepad and note the questions from the previous session that we've had from Engineer Chikeze. He's spoken about a lot of things. And just now that it's still top of mind, we might want to actually note these questions down in your private journal. Questions from, he had mentioned things as much as there's 85% of our petroleum products, that's still being imported from external sources. So in reality, how long will it take us to actually get to a point where we are no longer importing? What things do we need to start to do? What's the encouragement, I would say, for younger entrepreneurs, even playing in the oil and gas sector as an entrepreneur? Of course, it's a large task, but it's not impossible. He had mentioned also that if you'd want to run a modular refinery that could produce about 5,000 barrels per day, then you're looking at $50 million. So for even the younger, and I imagine there are probably younger professionals that are on here as well, and we're looking up to an Engineer Chikeze, what things do we need to start doing now if we have that goal, if we have that vision of owning a modular refinery someday? What would be his advice? I know he had also mentioned, secondly, I'm just looking at my note here to also juggle our memory and start to pick your mind as to what questions you would want to ask. I know you had mentioned around pipeline infrastructure network. Is it an exclusive of the government? Is it an opportunity for entrepreneurship? Can we have young minds start to think, okay, if we want to step up and close the infrastructure gap that we have in the pipeline services, what would that look like? And I imagine that we can start to even have small silos of conversations right off of this technical forum.
Hi,
and it is a technical
forum. Sorry.
Yes.
So, yes, we have Mr. Amediko now.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. I was just taking that still with a short time. All right, welcome, Sir Engineer Amediko. I'll be passing it over to you now. We've taken an introduction just to speak to the participants about you. So.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. We can hear you.
Hearing me? Okay. Fantastic. It's really very nice to be with you this afternoon on this important technical presentation. And I must say, the previous speaker, Mr. Nwosu, has done quite a lot of work and has made my own presentation even more easier because he has outlined critically the state of the downstream in Nigeria and most especially the refineries. However, I will just run through what I have for you so that I can share my own insight and what I think we need to do to unlock the potentials of our refineries so that we become sufficient and satisfy our energy needs. Thank you. As you already know, earlier, Nigeria has the capacity to produce well over 2 million barrels of crude oil, but due to many factors, we are not able to achieve that at the moment. Even though I know quite a lot of has been done by NNPC Limited to make sure that we ramp up production as much as possible. So while we do this, we rely heavily on imported refined petroleum products, which of course consume quite a lot of foreign exchange and then starve other parts of the economy from benefiting from this foreign exchange. So it's very important really to unlock Nigeria's crude oil refining capacity so that we can be able to relieve quite a lot of this foreign exchange that is being used to import petroleum products. Next slide. Okay, on the summary, Nigeria spent this much importing petroleum products in 2023, 11.9 trillion naira. And then, of course, we know that almost all the refineries that have been owned by NNPC Limited are not producing. They were shut down sometimes in 2019, deliberately so that quite some work can be done around them. The refineries will require quite a lot of money to upgrade. And I know NNPC Limited has the plan, once they achieve the current rehabilitation, to go to the next phase to upgrade these refineries to meet current standards available now. And then the plan, of course, is to get these refineries owned by NNPC to come on stream, probably starting by end of this year, so that we can be able to have some local refining going on. And then, of course, the earlier speaker have spoken quite a lot glamorously on the modular refineries effort, and then the Dangote refinery, which are all going to supplement this issue of unlocking our refining capacity. We are very happy that those private initiatives are really on course to bring some relief for us in Nigeria as per petroleum products requirements. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, as I said earlier, no, go back a slide more, please. Yeah, Mr. Nwosu has earlier mentioned that NNPC Limited has 3 refineries, basically the Port Harcourt refinery, which is a 210,000 barrels per stream day capacity, the Warri refinery, which is 125,000 barrels, and the Kaduna refinery, 110,000 barrels, a total of 445,000 barrels per stream day capacity. These refineries have been built quite a long time, and the newest of it is the new Port Harcourt refinery, which was commissioned 35 years ago in 1989. So basically, they are really very old refineries to say, but we'll see still that once they are doing the right thing, you can be able to operate these refineries so that they can continue to operate sustainably and efficiently. Next slide. This is just a simple showing of the low capacity utilization of these refineries, which is not really something to be proud of. You can see over the years, we've barely reached, of course, nameplate capacities. And now we are practically at zero because, as I earlier said, these refineries are undergoing rehabilitation at this point. Next slide. Now, what are the reasons that we found ourselves into this situation? As you know, refining business is quite a technical business and require periodic maintenances, which we call turnaround maintenance, which usually happens within 2-3 years of operational cycle, to continue to run sustainably. Sadly, in Nigeria, we've not really been adhering to that part of the business to make sure our refineries are maintained as they should be. And it's very sad, and I must mention here that the last turnaround maintenance that took place in Port Harcourt refinery was in the year 2000. So you can imagine it's over 24 years that we had any turnaround maintenance. So no matter how much you would like to get the best of these facilities, it's not really going to be possible because the right things are not being done. We could stay the whole evening here today to be given reasons why these maintenances were not really carried out as they should. And I'm not sure that's the intent of this discussion. But what is very gladdening to hear is that the last couple of years, NNPC Limited has taken quite a bold step to see how we can rehabilitate these refineries, at least to the way they were before they were shut down. And I must say here that all the 3 refineries are undergoing some kind of rehabilitation work as I speak. Port Harcourt refinery has really gone very, very far, and there is a total rehabilitation that is going on there. We are working very, very hard at this point to conclude the old Port Harcourt refinery, which is a 60,000 barrels capacity. And I'm sure that, as I had last reports, sometime around June, July, they'll be able to introduce hydrocarbon to that part of the refinery, and then we'll begin to have some operations. Other part of the Port Harcourt refinery is really busy to undergoing this rehab project. And we hope towards the end of the year, or at worst early next year, we'll be ready to also attempt to get up to about 80% of the nameplate capacity available for us to operate. The Warri refineries and Kaduna refineries are also in the same track, having some rehabilitation projects going on, kind of quick fix maintenance arrangements so that we can quickly get the critical process facilities to be able to be ready, and then put them to operations. They are also doing very well, and we envisage that by the end of this year, at least Warri Refinery will be able to have some level of operations. Kaduna Refinery is a little bit disadvantaged because it's quite far from the source of crude. And as the earlier speaker mentioned, the state of our pipelines are not something to be very proud of. So crude oil feedstock is a big challenge, particularly to Kaduna. But of course, again, quite a lot is being done to have some sectional repairs along those pipelines so that crude can actually get to Kaduna Refinery and then they can operate. And then, of course, other source of crude is also being looked at to see whether or not crude can get to Kaduna Refinery and they can also operate. Now, that is one. To be able to do all these activities, you need money. And then, of course, money is quite premium these days. It's not very easy to get the right investment, either from government or from private banks. It's been a tough time. In Port Harcourt Refinery, we're able to secure a loan of $1 billion from Afri-Exim for part of this rehabilitation work going on. And I know exactly how difficult it was to be able to close out that deal and get the money so that the work can go on. But we thank God we're able to succeed in that. And as I said earlier, the project is almost coming to an end. The facilities are all aged. As I said, the newest of these refineries was built, commissioned in 1989, and that's over 35 years ago. So, of course, you need to be mindful of that. And then, of course, inefficient operations and maintenance. The model that was used all this while to run these refineries is not quite efficient. So, again, from information, I know NNPC is looking at a new enhanced model now, which is the operation and maintenance model, where a right operator will be sought to come and join NNPC to run these facilities in a commercial arrangement. We feel that this is quite, of course, a very common activity in the upstream, which all of you know, and we hope to leverage on this kind of arrangement to our refineries so that we can guarantee efficiency and then successful production of maintenance and operations of this refinery. Security and vandalization of our lines, of course, we all know the challenge, and NNPC again has been on top of it, running all that can be done to make sure that we secure our pipelines, most especially even the export crude pipelines and the crude oil theft. That's something that has been mentioned severally over the last few years. Host community is another issue. You know very well, while we operate in the oil and gas, we must do the right thing to have the comfort to be able to do our business. So we really have to make sure that our host communities are really satisfied and will give us the comfort to be able to do exactly what we should be doing. Environmental concern, yes. Earlier speaker has spoken about the issue around the environment and then the effort to eliminate fossil fuels in the next couple of years. Of course, there's still so much time that we need to leverage on the fossil fuels that we have. But then we are very mindful of the environmental concern, and then right processes must be put in place to make sure that this impact is minimized as much as possible. Skill level is another issue, particularly around NNPC Limited. There has been quite a lot of attrition due to retirements, both voluntary and then statutory. And then, of course, employment has not really caught up with the level of people leaving. So manpower shortage and right skill is an issue, but we do hope that with the coming up of the O&M maintenance arrangement, we'll be able to sort the right kind of people, and then while we try to build our own competencies within our young engineers and other graduates as well. Then, of course, issue of policies and inconsistencies. This is one of the reasons where the challenges has come from the Nigerian own refineries. At one point, government will say they want to privatize the refineries, and as such, there will be no investment given. Another time, it will be done. Another government will come and reverse that decision. So all these government inconsistencies and policies are part of the reasons why our refineries over the last couple of decades have not really performed optimally the way we want them to. But as I said, with the stability in the political space now, and then the the desire of NNPC Limited management to make sure that we overcome that opportunity and have a robust refining capacity. In doing all this, there are opportunities, of course, for people to benefit. Once government support and investment increase, we'll be able to have refineries functional. We'll be able to have other people who are interested to play in the sphere of the refining business to come in. And of course, as the previous speaker mentioned, a lot of licenses have been given to people over the last couple of decades, but only a few have been able to have the courage to delve into it. A lot of it, of course, is tied to the policies of government, investments, and then, of course, very, very important before is the regulation of our petroleum products. But I'm happy, as mentioned earlier, almost all products are deregulated now. Even PMS is deregulated somehow, almost completely, but of course, a little of it left. So with this kind of commercial opportunities, people can now truly put in their monies and businesses around refineries so that they can leverage on the opportunity. And then, of course, the process of modernization and upgrade of the refineries, also a very big opportunity there. And as I mentioned, NNPC Limited is planning on that. Immediately, these first level projects are on and the refineries are producing. Next is to try to upgrade these refineries to the current processes available worldwide. It will cost a lot of money, but of course, that's the way to go so that we can be able to, first of all, produce products that will meet international standards and make sure that we are complying properly with the regulations around the refining. To also delve into the refineries business. Now, what strategies do you intend to use to get and unlock this our refining capacity? Number one, of course, is to upgrade and modernize existing refineries. I've already mentioned that. That is going to be the next phase on the NNPC-owned refineries. And then we also need to encourage the private sector to make investment in this field. Of course, with the regulations, with the stability politically going on, with properly source of funds that are available, we'll see a lot of this private sector investment in the refinery business. Then, of course, we need, of course, to develop new refineries and petrochemicals plants. All those who have been issued licenses earlier on, we do hope they will come forward to also begin to have this opportunity to put in investments around the refining business. And of course, to implement effective management and maintenance practices, exactly what I said earlier, the O&M model for the NNPC refineries is going to be in place. And we feel that is going to be very, very important in having a sustainable and efficient operations of these refineries. Promoting local content is something that every business should do, particularly whether in the upstream, downstream, or midstream, so that we can develop our economy holistically. Then, of course, security issues must be improved. And I know government are doing the best they can to make sure that security have really improved and then people can go about doing their businesses properly. Community engagement, as I said earlier, is very key for any success in this oil and gas business. So, and the PIA also have some part of it, but it's kind of compulsory for people to really comply with community engagement. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Nwosa has also spoken on the PIA, so I won't say too much of it. What is important for NNPC Limited is the commercialization of it now. And then, of course, we have the fiscal framework and investment encouragement. We have enhanced governance and accountability. And then we have support for the host communities, which I've said earlier. These are the main thrusts that the PIA has brought to bear. And it's something that we will see the benefit very, very soon as the businesses mature. Next slide. Okay, so what are the benefits of unlocking our refining capacity? We all know that guaranteeing the energy security in Nigeria is one of the main thrusts for NNPC Limited as stipulated by the PIA. And that is why the management of NNPCL is doing all they can to make sure that at least refining capacity has returned to Nigeria. That is improved energy security, energy self-sufficiency, and reduced dependence on imports. You've heard earlier the amount of monies that we spend on imported products, And if we were able to really have some local refining capacity in Nigeria, quite a lot of those dependencies and imports will be less. Foreign exchange savings will be very welcome by the government so that those monies can be deployed into other parts of the economy in Nigeria. Increased revenue, very obviously, once you are able to produce sustainably and efficiently, more money will come to you. And then price volatility will also reduce across product sales in Nigeria. Job creation and economic growth, very obvious. So long as you have businesses that are thriving, expanding, then you'll be able to have opportunity for job creation. So in conclusion, I would say that unlocking Nigeria's crude oil refining capacity is critical for energy self-sufficiency and economic growth. As I said earlier, this is a very key mantra for NNPC Limited as enshrined by the PIA. The refineries as they are today are coming back to life, and we're very, very optimistic that probably by the end of this year, we'll be able to see our Nigerian-owned refineries coming back to life, and therefore bringing in some local refining capacity. And of course, is going. And then, of course, addressing challenges and leveraging opportunities will require collaborative of government, private sector, and stakeholders. So also, as mentioned, quite a lot of activities going around the modular refineries, and then, of course, other private refineries like Dangote, BOA, and other people who are coming in. So, in summary, we really feel that within the end of this year to next year, there will be a great change in the Nigeria refining capacity when all these facilities come on stream. And this is the hope of us, so that, as I said, to reduce the import level of these petroleum products, and then it will free quite a lot of monies for government to be able to do some other things. So thank you very much, and I hope we will get to see that what we are desiring about our refining comes to bear. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Ahmed Diko. That was really insightful. Thank you for the update. And even right off your slide, I can see the assurance that together we can unleash the productivity and prosperity we hope to see in our country, not just energy for today, but energy for tomorrow. And now will be a great time, especially for everyone that has sat through the presentation thus far. Just stand up a bit, stretch your legs. We're trying to be compliant with safety measures. So just stand up, drink water, look through your notes as well, and questions that have come to mind. As Engineer Ahmed spoke, he had mentioned that come June, July, we can start to anticipate the good news we've all been looking out for. It's been in the news for so long. The refineries are under rehabilitation. And right as he started speaking, I'd noted that question down as my first question of when would we see this? So hearing that was positively uplifting, that June, July, we can actually see something positive come up. And then that also, I believe, would make a good statement to start to prospect for funding to say, oh, we do have the Port Harcourt refinery live now. It's been rehabilitated successfully, and then we can make a case for the Warri refinery onto the Kaduna refinery. A thought that comes to mind along those lines would be the question of the illegal refining. You know, we're sitting today hearing what it looks like to actually do this legally. We're hearing the opportunities that abound. We're hearing the challenges that could be anticipated. We are also getting insights into the funding, the capacity, human capacity, infrastructure capacity. But the question still begs asking, what of the illegal refining that is ongoing? So I'm saying some of these thoughts, I imagine, might be in some of our minds as questions to ask. Let's also bear in mind that we will have a robust question and answer session right after we take our third and final speaker today. And he is coming from, I would say, foot on the field, you know. Okay, there are questions that are coming in already. So let's just keep dropping these questions as they come to mind, just so that we can take them together when the sessions are done. Okay, a number of things I know that even from Engineer Ahmed speaking was about the PIA. So we will have time to speak to all of these things right after we hear from Mr. Devakuma VG Edwin, who is our third and final speaker today. He's the Vice President, Oil and Gas, Dangote Industries Limited. And he will be speaking on subject from import to export, solving Nigeria's energy quagmire. And it is indeed a quagmire. Mr. Devakuma is a highly qualified engineer and management professional. He has extensive experience. I think the screen is blurring out a bit. I don't know if that's from my end. Okay. Just hold on a bit for that to clear up so we can read Mr. Devakuma's bio.
You know you can change the camera.
Say that again, Asana.
Okay, Olamide, I can read it from here. It's clear here, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Go for it.
Okay, so Mr. Devakuma VG Edwin is a highly qualified engineer and management professional, has extensive experience in industrial management and project execution, with several roles involving from general manager to executive director. Mr. Devakuma played a vital role in the group's growth. He oversaw the construction of the Dangote refinery, serving as the managing director and chief executive officer of the Obajana Cement PLC, and group managing director and chief executive officer of Dangote Cement PLC. His contribution has been instrumental in the company's success and expansion. Okay, let me do over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Odion. Okay, so Mr. Devakuma, we will pass it on to you now from import to export, solving Nigeria's energy quagmire. You can go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Can you go to the opening slide, please?
Okay, yes, have it now.
Okay. Well, sorry, you can go.
Okay, Mr. Devakuma, just when you need me to go to the next slide, you just tell me the next slide, then I'll just proceed to the next slide.
Go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, as you can see, this was a front page of New Nigerian newspaper exactly almost 50 years ago. I think it's March 1975. So from that time, for the past 50 years, we have been saying how to develop a strategy to beat fuel crisis. So they even outlined the strategy. And as we know, even just a week, 10 days ago, we went through another fuel crisis. So we have been developing strategies over the past 5 decades, and we are still facing the same struggle. But as the previous speakers pointed out, one through the modular refinery solution, and number two through the reactivation of the existing refineries. And now, as I'm going to present about the new larger refineries, I think after 5 decades, we are at the end of the road having got a solution. This is just a panoramic view of the site. And this is around close to 30 square kilometers of area. It's about 7 times the size of Victoria Island. And can you go to the next slide, please? This is the refining. This is the Dangote refining business strategy. As you can see, when we did the design, we realized that we are going for a very large refinery. It's about the 5th largest refinery in the world. As a single train, this is the largest refinery in the world. So we had to have our business strategies correctly so that we would not fail. And you can see the overall strategy. First is we wanted to go for Euro 5 products because we realized that we are going to build a refinery which will have a huge quantity of surplus after meeting the entire requirements of the country. So if I have to export my aviation jet to Europe, if I have to export my gasoline to US, I should be producing the top of the line product, without which we cannot meet the we cannot export the products. So we decided to go for the best in class quality. Number 2 was to go for crude flexibility. Yes, the whole focus of the refinery to be put in Nigeria was to take care of all the crude oil production coming from Nigeria. We know that, for example, Nigeria has been the largest exporter of crude to US. We are the number 1 export. US was our number 1 customer. But after US light tight oil came, the shale oil came, the whole scenario changed. In fact, they were producing a similar lighter sweet crude. So the country started exporting the crude, US, and so we lost our single largest customer. So now we had to even look for alternative customers. So we knew that there is going to be a lot of surplus crude available here. But at the same time, we also know that things could always change. So we had to build in flexibility. And we are currently facing the challenge because most of our crude has already been committed to various companies from where we have borrowed money. So we had built in crude flexibility, which we did. So that has saved us today. For example, we can import the crude and manage. Number 3, we had to also, the market dynamics were changing. Earlier, heavier crude was getting a much better price margin because the dirtier crude like Mexican Maya, Venezuelan crudes were going at a much cheaper price. So people were going in for processing heavier crudes, and they were also going in for, so you had to go for an entirely different style of refinery, and you have to have coke ovens to produce coker. But at the same time, after the US light tight oil started coming into the market, the gap between the lighter crude and the heavier crude started bridging because there was a lot of surplus light tight oil coming in. So we defined our strategy based on the current as well as the future market trend. And then the next issue was the gasoline production. If you see all the refineries in the world, they will always maximize diesel production because that's the product which is really in demand in the country, their respective countries. Even our NNPC refineries, if you see, they can produce 22% of your capacity as gasoline. But we realized that in Nigeria, the gasoline demand is so huge. So we decided to design our refinery to maximize gasoline production. So we can, 53% of our production can be tuned to produce gasoline. So there was another design consideration we took as a part of the business strategy. Then another one was the maximum value addition. Every barrel of crude which goes in, the full juice has to be extracted in a lighter product. So if you look at it, we are not going to have a lot of black oil or cheaper bunker fuel production. The only lower value production is 7%, and the rest 93% is lighter production. Whether lighter oil means it is gasoline, aviation jet, and diesel. So the value generation from this refinery is going to be so high. For every barrel of crude, we can generate very high revenues. And that particular 7% has also been designed to meet the exact specification of a carbon black feedstock. So it is also going for a specific industrial consumption. So even that 7% will give us a better return. And of course, we adopted the state-of-the-art technology. Can you go to the next slide, please? And so this is a summary of it. The refinery can meet 100% of the Nigerian requirements of all the products, and will have surplus to export each of these products. And it is going to create about $11 billion market for the Nigerian crude. And we are strategically located with a marine infrastructure for receiving the crude and evacuating the products. Next slide, please. So this gives you a kind of an outline of what is our capacity and what's the market consumption. The production capacity of gasoline is 57 million liters per day. And the current consumption of gasoline is 33 million liters per day. Let us say we are going to revert back to the subsidy, and which means it will not only be meeting the requirement of Nigeria, but part of Cameroon, Chad, Niger, because as you know, the product goes all across the border. It can go to Togo, it goes to Benin. So it goes across, in which case it can even go double. So almost 60 million liters. So we can see the capacity of the refinery. It can meet the entire requirements of Nigeria. Even when the subsidy is lifted, I think we can meet the full requirement without a requirement for any input. Otherwise, the subsidy is fully enforced. The subsidy is fully removed, and it is going to be as per the market price. Then we have substantial quantity for export. The primary markets are both US and the South American markets. And the next is the jet. We have huge quantity to export. That's the primary market will be Europe and of course Sub-Saharan Africa. Diesel also, you can see 27 million liters per day production, consumption is 10 million liters. So we have about 17 million liters surplus for export. Again, the primary target would be Sub-Saharan Africa. And so the total, you can see 104 million liters per day, only half of it is the consumption of Nigeria. So 50% will go on to meet the Nigerian demand, 50% will go for export. And we have also provided facility for blending ethanol to make a more environmentally friendly product. You know that up to 10% blending is permitted within the government. So if it is required, we can also bring the ethanol and blend it. The facility we have provided for it. Next slide, please. We have also integrated a petrochemical complex along with it. Primarily, it can produce 850,000 tons of polypropylene. I talked about the carbon black feedstock with sulfur, as you know, in any refinery, we'll be extracting sulfur. But there is a huge petrochemical complex to produce close to 1 million tons of polypropylene. The next slide, please. Well, I just wanted to highlight, we talked about, the topic is how we are going for dependency on import to an export scenario. But I also wanted to highlight the major challenges we have faced in this construction. It is not so easy to go and set up a large refinery in this place. To begin with, as I said, we wanted to have the site close to the coast so we can bring the crude through ship, we can export the products through ship. We had a site where 70% of the land was swampy. And we had to pump in 65 million cubic meters of sand, paying about 300 million euro just to develop the site. Another concern we faced was, yes, we can build, the refinery has to be close to the coast, But if you start Googling which are the cities which are likely to be affected because of global warming, you will see that Lagos is one of the top 10 cities that is likely to be affected. So if the global warming is going to bring in the seawater inside, a refinery which is close to the coast will certainly be affected. So we also had to elevate the whole site by 1.5 meters. So this is one of the first major challenge we faced. Okay, we are taking over the previous one.
Sorry, had a bit of a network snag there. So what page are you? The right page,
Okay,
back or front?
This one, please.
Did you say next slide?
The previous.
Well,
The previous.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for that.
Yeah. And the next thing is, we wanted to start the construction. We called Julius Bayer. We have a relationship with them because they helped us in constructing the Obajana cement plant, the first phase. So the guys came, they studied all the drawings, and they said, sorry, we cannot build any of your industrial part of the construction. Then we had about 120 buildings, which is various control rooms, satellite rack rooms, and other such support facility. They said out of that 120, probably always have a tendency to write off all the equipment cost into my project. Okay, so we previous slide. So we had to go and invest on brand new construction equipment such as excavators, compactors, front end loaders, dumpers. So we had to invest in a huge amount of brand new civil construction equipment. So that added to the total cost of the construction of the refinery. Second, the cranes. Except the 5,000-ton crane, we bought on our own 330 cranes. Because again, for construction, we would have to ship in and ship out the cranes of the contractors, a huge amount of cost. So we bought 330 cranes on our own, brand new again. The next stage is it's a huge construction activity, and we know that the stone quarries available around the place, or even if you go up to Abuja to bring the stones, that is not going to be adequate. So we had to open up a stone quarry with a capacity of 10 million tons per annum, which happens to be the largest stone quarry in the world today. So we had to, because we needed to have it for making concrete, we had to have larger stones for putting stone columns. We need a stone base for developing the site, and we needed a large, huge stone blocks for developing the breakwater. So this was additional cost. These were all costs which were actually added to the cost of the basic construction of the refinery. The next slide. Then the logistics. Yes, we build up a stone quarry. Then how are we going to move the aggregates? And we will be buying sand for again making concrete. How are we going to move the sand? So more than 1,500 brand new, large, expensive equipment had to be brought in. The next stage is ready-mix concrete. Again, you know, we are one of the largest producers of cement in Nigeria. In most of the countries, the cement is sold in bulk because it goes straight into ready-mix concrete production. In Nigeria, 95% of the cement is sold in 50-kilo bags. Only 5% of the cement is sold in bulk for ready-mix concrete production. So we had to go in for investment in ready-mix concrete production capacity because the capacity is not available in the country. So we had to go for 16 batching plants of various capacities. I had to go for 82 concrete pumps to pump the concrete, 203 transit mixers to move the concrete. Another huge amount of investment had to go in just to build this refinery. By the way, the ready-mix concrete facilities, again, is the largest in the world anytime. You cannot find such capacity in US or Middle East anywhere, 13 million cubic meters of concrete capacity. And then we had to develop a port facility because we had to bring in large equipment. The largest single piece of equipment which we bought was 3,000 tons, one single piece. We brought our crude column, 120 meters long, one single piece. So such equipment, you know, most of the ports are normally designed with a load-bearing capacity of about 2 to 3 tons per square meter, because that's the kind of cargo load which is going to be offloaded from the ships into the quay. But here, we needed a capacity of 25 tons per square meter, because this equipment, if you put in any of the ports of the quay, the whole quay will just go down. So we had to build in, and we had to also build in a ro-ro facility to handle 120 meter long cargo, 3,000 ton piece. So we had to build in ro-ro facility. We had to build in 2 quays with such huge load-bearing capacity. Of course, because we are building the port, we added up additional capacities for exporting our fertilizer too. Next slide. And then we had to put up a welding gases plant. Yes, we have welding gas companies here. We have Air Liquide, we have BOC, we have other companies here. But even when I was building Obajana Cement, we had to struggle for adequate welding gas capacity. I had to even go and beg BOC to reopen their plant in Kaduna, which was lying closed, so that we can get enough welding gases. You can imagine a refinery where the welding gas consumption will be so large. So we had to build up a welding gas plant on our own. So you can imagine how much of thought process had to go in to begin with before the construction to plan and invest in all this infrastructure facilities and the cost which has gone into this building. We had to build a facility to accommodate 50,000 people because at the peak time, we had about 70,000 personnel working with full air conditioning, running hot and cold water, street lights, piping and distribution, treated water, sewage evacuation, sewage treatment plant. A whole complex was built. And that really helped us. Quite a few times people used to comment in the early days, you have built such a huge complex. People are anyway, all the workers are coming from outside, coming back, going and coming out every day. So why did you invest in this? And then COVID came. At that time, it really helped us because we could accommodate all people inside and ensure that the COVID doesn't come inside. And that helped us to keep moving during the COVID period without a slowdown. And then the refinery is built in about 180,000 piles, probably the largest number of on their own. We know of only 3 companies we have done so far in the history of the business. Otherwise, we normally go to Technip, Bechtel, site. So all big contractors, we call them to do the construction, EPC construction. Here, we decided that Dangote will do it. Because we realized, we went to talk to the EPC contractors. First of all, they said, okay, 650,000 refinery, normally the capital cost is $30,000 a barrel. So it will come to about $19.5 billion will be your capital cost. So our fee will be 10 to 15%. So there is a huge amount of fee. Number two, we normally go for EPC thinking that, okay, we are passing away our risk of time delays or any other mistake. But if you look at the contract, they always cap their liability. They'll cap their liability to 15, 20, 25% of their fees. So at the end of the day, my liability which I'm passing on is very minimal, but I'm going to pay them a huge fees. But it needed a very courageous decision. My president, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, decided that, okay, everyone will just take the risk and do it. So now Nigeria has developed an inbuilt capacity to build such a huge complex as a EPC contractor. So it is not just the refinery which has come up. We have developed the capacity to build such large complexes in any part of the world. Next slide. And okay, next slide. We'll just skip some of the slides. Then this is the supporting facilities. We had to build up 435 megawatt of power. We have to produce the steam capacity also we built up. We built up a huge tank farm with about 177 tanks. And we had to develop a loading capacity. We built in a lot of flexibility. 75% of our production, sorry, there is a mistake in this one. 75% of our capacity can go through sea, the ship loading, and 83% of our production can be loaded through trucks. So we have total flexibility. There is a huge demand. Locally, we have to be supplying in a rush. We can load up to 83% of this production through trucks, though the whole total country's consumption is only 50%. And we can, if you want to export a lot of products, we can also push in because up to 75% we can export. We can load up to 2,950 trucks every day through our loading base. Next. These are the marine facilities. We bought 5 SPMs. This was the single largest order in the entire history of the petroleum industry to buy at one go. We bought two crude SPMs. We need only one. The SPM stands for single point mooring buoys. So one SPM is enough to bring the crude, but we built a standby one. And then we put 3 SPMs for exporting the product. Then importing the SPM handling the crude can handle VLCCs and even ULCC if you can get one. And the product SPMs, because normally the largest vessels handling products are Suezmax vessels, it can comfortably handle Suezmax. So we had to lay about 20 kilometers of subsea pipeline for going from the refinery to the crude SPM, and also from going from the refinery to the product SPMs. And we have a huge offloading and loading capacity. As you can see, we can offload 108 barrels per hour. So if you bring million barrels of crude, we can offload it in 10, 11 hours. And the same thing with product. We can load 7,500 barrels per hour. So any VLCC or VLCC coming in can be offloaded in less than a day. And the same thing, any Suezmax vessels coming in can be loaded in less. So we have built in huge capacity for bringing in crude and exporting the product. Next. This is the tank farm capacity. To the first slide, I said how to resolve the problem of 50 years ago, they were discussing and debating how to bring this, eliminate the problem of petroleum queues. You can see the capacity we have built in. We can store 18 days requirement of Nigeria just within our refinery alone. And jet fuel, of course, is a much larger capacity. Diesel is 1 month's capacity. So we have built in huge storage capacity. So it can continuously go out without leading to a situation or a scenario of any kind of fuel crisis. So this was another focus for us to eliminate fuel crisis in the country. I talked about the big cargoes. As you can see, the sizes of the cargoes which were brought in as a single piece. The crude column almost 100 meters, weighing 2,300 tons. The regenerated 2,800 tons, along with the package, it came as a single piece of 3,000 tons. All these pieces brought as a single piece. 100 meters long, 3,000 tons heavy, fully brigaded and brought to the site. And this is the volume of engineering work we have done. You can see isometrics alone more than 60,000, vendor drawings more than 25,000. So we had to do a lot of engineering work also. Refinery is primarily a licensed process. There are two major licenses. One is Accents in France, and another is UOP, Honeywell Group from US. So most of the licenses we took from UOP for various processes. The Emery ExxonMobil license for the scan finding. We took DuPont for alkylation, and of course Air Liquide for hydrogen, and INEOS propylene. And we normally assess the complexity of a refinery by Nelson Index. Normally, this refinery should not be a highly complex refinery, but we made it a highly complex refinery because our focus was to extract maximum value of every barrel of crude going in. So that's why the Nelson Index was 9.5. Then we had to take care of air emission controls to ensure that it's highly environmental friendly. What we did was we took up the EU standards, we took up the US EPA standards. So for each parameter, if the US standard is more stringent, we adopted that. Where the EU standard is more stringent, we adopted that. Because this has been our philosophy even from the beginning, even when we produce cement, which is supposed to be highly dusty and causing pollution to the atmosphere. The Nigerian standards for dust emission is 250 nm cube for nm cube of air. But the European standards at that time was 50 milli per nm cube of air, and we designed it for 15, 1/3 of the European standards. Now the European standards has gone to 30, so we are still below European standards. So all our construction businesses, our focus is always to be very highly environmental friendly. It's not just even trying, because if you are not environmental friendly, you cannot have a good community relationship. The host communities will kick up and create a lot of problems. So we design all our businesses to meet the best of the environmental standards, so the communities will have absolute no issues. And the same thing with safety standards. As you know, in this group, every business is built with a single investor's money. And we normally go for public listing after the business becomes operational and after it comes into a profit. So the investors who are investing in when we list the public, the investors coming in will not have any risk. They have assured returns. So risk is borne by the single investor. So we always, every business we invest in, we do a very rigid risk analysis so that the investors, the single investor, Mr. Aliko Dangote, is not exposed to any risk as far as his money is concerned. So we build to the highest level of safety standards. Next slide. The same thing with the protection. So this is part of the safety standards. So that brings me to a closure of the presentation, but I would try to bring out the essence of what we have been talking about. Nigeria, as we said, 50 years ago, started debating how to end the fuel queues. And we decided how we are going to change the scenario from importation to exportation and to generate profits. And this has not been our strategy only in petroleum refining. The same thing with cement. The cement, every year, the global standards is either US will be the largest importer of cement or Nigeria. So the first position, whether it is Nigeria or US, is going to be the largest importer this year. It will be the challenge. But now we are exporting cement. So we changed the whole scenario from importer to exporter. The same thing now in the petroleum industry. The same thing we should do. We have always been complaining that we have crude production and it is being exported and we are importing finished products. So that has been our focus. But of course, as you know, this is not just limited to the petroleum industry. Unfortunately, we can see the scenario in sub-Saharan Africa or the whole of Africa. You will have bauxite, somebody will produce aluminum and send it back. We have copper, we will export, somebody will send the finished products back. We have iron ore, it will go out, finished products will come in. I always like to give this example. South Africa, people look at it as a more developed place, and it is a higher risk of diamond. But a boy wants to propose to a girl in South Africa, that diamond which is produced in his country has to go to Belgium or Netherlands, cut and polished, or to Israel, and then come back to South Africa before he can present a diamond ring. So the problem in sub-Saharan Africa has been that all our raw material has been getting exported and we have been dumped with all the finished products. So this was a focus, and that is what I said, we changed the scenario in cement and we went into oil with the same hope that we will be able to turn over and bring Nigeria to become a net exporter of products, and not just net exporter of some average quality, but to export the best of the quality so the product can go into US, the product can go into Europe. So that is what we have built in, and I have brought out how much of challenges we had to face, how much of cost which had to go in not just the refinery. Refinery itself is okay, but we had to put in so much of money in putting so much of infrastructure or supporting facilities to ensure the successful completion of the refinery. And the challenge which we took, that the Nigerian company can become an EPC contractor. Today, if you look at our construction equipment, I think we are number 2 in the world today. We believe that Technique has larger amount of construction equipment than us, but we are the number 2. So we have built the skills, we have built up the equipment, we have built up the knowledge. We took about 300 of our engineers and sent them overseas, training in petroleum production. Most of them spent almost a year in operating refineries, acquiring the skills. And if you when we have started the production, you can see already some of them in the master control group managing the operations. And we have built in, one of the previous speakers, when he was talking about, he mentioned the lack of skills as one of the problems. But we have developed a lot of skills locally. In fact, some of the African Development Bank and Afrexim Bank, when they came and visited the site, they said, you have developed so much of skills that please, we are financing projects in other African countries. Why don't you take contracts and go and take the Nigerians to go and do projects in other countries? We explained to them the same thing we have done in cement. We have gone all across Africa, and we can see Nigerians in Tanzania, Zambia, Ethiopia, importing the skills which they have learned locally and managing those businesses as expatriate staff. So it's not just a transformation of the petroleum industry scenario, but transformation of the country, developing skills and taking it outside. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think I could capture some of what we wanted to capture. And during the question and answer session, I'm always open to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Devakuma. That was a really robust presentation. We will be going right on to the questions and discussion session, which will be moderated by Engineer Joe Nwakwe. He's a part of Zero Advisory and Consulting. and he's the former special advisor, policy regulation, to the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum in the year 2017 to 2019. He's the former Woodway Limited 2015 to 2017. He was a former reservoir engineering lead and advisor with Exxon, and he was chairman SPE Nigerian Council in the year 2019-2020. So I will pass it on now to you, sir, Mr. Joe, to take us on the questions and discussion session. Thank you. Okay, just a bit of technical check here. Do we have Mr. Joe on or Dion? Trying to look through.
Yes, he's on, and so you can speak now. Yeah, he's mic. Yeah.
Yes, I'm okay.
All right.
Okay, I can unmute now. Thank you very, very much. Thank you and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's been a very, very, very engaging, insightful, and interesting session. We've heard from three titans of the industry, and I've seen quite a few questions. So I think to start, we are going to go to the chat box and get all the comments and questions that has been raised, so that we'll take time to go through, get answers to those specific questions. Well, they are not panelists; they are our technical resources for today. So I will start. I think down a few questions that were posed. I'll start with Mr. Chike Nwosu, the very first presenter. The question was, in the session you made mention of Dangote Refinery getting crude from US. I saw that in the news some days ago, but sir, for some now, much more than I remember, we know that US does not export. Okay, so basically the question is about sourcing crude from the US, and I think there was a US banning crude exports, which I think has been reversed. I don't know if you want to shed more light on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Joe. I prefer to have a Dangote respond to that, because all we can rely on is the news that we hear. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I can come in.
Yes, Edwin, please go ahead.
Yes. During President Trump's time, when they started producing huge quantity of shale oil, which is what they call light tight oil, and that is when the scenario changed, when Nigeria becoming from being the #1 importer of Nigerian crude, they changed over completely. So, and they started exporting crude. In fact, President Trump's time, they pushed the crude all the way to India, and it is still going to all the way to India. So the LTO, as they call WTI, is available for exports. So when we are not able to get adequate crude within Nigeria, we go for WTI. Yes, it has additional cost of freight, but we have to keep bridging the gap and ensure that the refinery continues to keep up.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I think the next question that we got here was, okay, so this is for Mr. Diko. There was a question here, how do you see the PIA influencing or impact the domestic refining market?
Okay, thank you very much. As I've earlier mentioned, the PIA is and has impacted very clearly how NNPC Limited is going to be. First is the commercialization of the NNPC Limited, which means efficiency and profitability will have to be improved. That's number one. And then there is the progressive fiscal framework and investment encouragement across the whole value chain in the refinery business. We have also probably an enhanced governance and accountability that is enshrined in the PIA. So, and then of course, support for the home communities, which I've earlier said, it is very, very important for any business around the oil and gas industry. So basically, these are the things that impact on the local refinery as the PIA has been now adopted, and NNPC Limited is fully compliant with that act and is doing its business according to the way the PIA has established. So very soon we expect to see quite a lot of improvement around the refining business based on this commercialization, physical framework, support for the host communities, and then improve governance and accountability as the PIA has enshrined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. That was very insightful. I'll go back to Mr. Mosu. One concern that the industry has had is environmental impact. And Bodla Refinery has been no exception. People are concerned that a proliferation of Bodla refineries across the Delta will pose significant environmental challenges. And you did outline clearly what Walter Smith and your entity have done at time to address this. Do you think that as opposed to scale refineries, that this is the right strategy from an environmental perspective?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me mention that both the large refineries and the modular refineries can coexist. It's not either one or the other.
Or the other.
And yes, and I've already talked about the strategy that people who want to get involved in modular refineries should adopt. Proximity source of crude. Now, if you look at Walter Smith and Aradel, and even if you look at HSI strategy, it's exactly the same. The refinery as close as possible to the source of crude. For the Walter Smith Ibigwe refinery, the crude source is the Ibigwe field and Ohadi South field. The Ohadi South field is the Seplat NNPC JV, and it produces through the Ibigwe flow station. And that flow station is roughly, it shares a fence with the refinery. And it's an internal pipeline that takes crude from the storage in the flow station to the storage in the refinery. And that internal pipeline, when I say it's internal, it runs from the flow station to the refinery with boundary. I'm not even sure that that is more than 200 to 300 meters of pipeline. So any kind of spillage that happens on that pipeline is contained, okay, within that environment where, again, it is, when you talk about pipelines and the problems they have, it's around, access to inspection. And if you have a 200, 300 meter pipeline that is in the operational area, then, it's line of sight. There's nothing at the engine about inspecting that pipeline. The rest of it is that the products coming out of the refinery, whether it's a large-scale refinery or refinery, have to either be trucked or piped. So they share exactly the same issue. If it is piped, it's a pipeline network it has to go through, which affected one or the other. Okay. If it is trucked, it's about the nature of the roads that you're trucking this crude through. Now, Dangote does have an idea in terms of shipping their crude. So they have they've gone coastal, let's put it that way, to be able to move things around. But the HSI refinery is planned in Owaza near the Imo River, where the plan is also to, by the state government, to create a mini port there, where products from that industrial park, which includes the refinery, can be moved through water, using water access as well. So to answer your question, if a modular refinery is located a significant distance away from the source of crude, I would discourage that. Yeah, because the environmental damage that could occur by either trucking or piping crude over long distances is significant, especially when the refinery capacity is maybe 5 or 10,000, and you dot all those kind of refineries across the entire nation. It is easier for you where the refinery is located near the source of crude. The Owaza refinery by Abia State is located right in the nexus of 3 major fields. The Oza field by Millennium Oil and Gas, the Imo River field by NEPL, and the Nkali field by Energies. None of those fields is more than 10 kilometers away from the nexus of the refinery. In actual fact, for the Imo River field, the NEPL field, the pipeline that exports to the TP is a couple of 100 meters away from the nexus of the refinery. So I qualify that to say, yes, you're right. You have to dump these things far away from the source of crude. There is much more of an environmental impact. Last but not the least, I pointed out that one of the governance areas that manages very carefully is about emissions. And when Dangote talked about the emission standards that they have to comply with, I think Dangote even went a mile by going beyond the regulatory emission standards set within the country and tried to go for international emission standards. Now, the same thing with quite a number of modular refineries that try to beat the standards set by the regulators, especially the authority itself. But the authority makes sure that they actually regularly to monitor what's going on. I can tell you that once or twice, they've sanctioned these modular refineries, shut them down temporarily for them to get their acts together. So if you stay within the act of what the PIA provides, and you stay within the strategy of locating your refinery near the source of crude, you should be fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's very, very...
Mr. Joseph, will I be permitted to add something to what Mr. Nwosu said?
Yes, please.
Thank you. You know, people look at it, okay, refinery, modular refinery, how will it be competition? How will it be working out? Actually, they are complementary to each other. Mr. Nwosu talked about the proximity to the crude. It's not only that, the proximity to the market. So instead of trucking or taking my ship to my product to Wari or Calabar and then taking it out, that modular refinery will be catering to the market close by. So that way, the transportation cost is minimized. They are immediate, they have a captive market. So it is always going to be complementary. And regarding pollution standards or whether it is going to be affecting the environment, it is applicable to all refineries. And thirdly, the last point I want to bring out is we have to encourage our entrepreneurs. People have to start in a small way before we grow big. Mr. Dangote started with small businesses before we grew. And I said, how the African market is made to be dependent on imports. So please let us encourage entrepreneurs, modular refineries. They will grow into big, and one day they may be big refineries in rest either in Nigeria or other parts of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. That's very good. I think that's the right spirit. And that takes us to the next question that someone asked them. Whether or not you, the big brother, consider the modular operators as competition or collaborators? That was an interesting question. And I think back and I'm like, okay, the modular guys produce a lot of naphtha. And I don't know if you are a potential off-taker of that naphtha from the rather than exports. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
I'll come to you. Yeah, let me hear from Edwin.
Yeah, that is a good solution. If they have naphtha available, instead of exporting, we can buy it and use it in our refinery. Definitely, it's possible. And as I said, we are complementary to each other, not competitors.
Good. That's very Chike, please.
Yes, just to point out that we don't produce that much of naphtha in many of the modular refineries. But they was right when they said that the capacity for PMS, because naphtha is, what do you call it, the input product for that. The capacity for PMS is much higher in the Dangote refinery. Most of the modular refineries are not doing more than, if my mind serves me correctly, 15% of naphtha in their product lines. I know Walter Smith is doing about 10% or less, 12% maximum. Our own plant, based on our crude assays, is going to do about 6% maximum. Aradel is not doing that much of naphtha. So in actual fact, where we're complementary is that the product end that Dangote has a lower production rate, 7% is for fuel oils, where a lot of the modular refineries have their largest products. For example, Watersmith has about 46% of fuel oil, and I think it's also averagely about the same with Aradel. And the HSI one is going to have almost 58% heavy fuel oil. So I can only complementary things around how we can make these products available both in Nigeria and across the West Africa region. The last part I'd like to say is that there is a condensate refinery that is being worked on, which will probably have about 53% of naphtha. And all these naphtha, instead of exporting it outside or using it in the paint industry, be made available to Dangote.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly where that collaboration will come to life if we're able to aggregate. Because from what you're saying, these are going to be fairly small volumes of naphtha, so there needs to be some aggregation to make it worthwhile for the big brother. Thank you very much. That's very good insight, Chike. I'll go to Mr. Diko, who has had a very illustrious time with NNPC, our national oil company. And the question really is good that NNPC is working to bring back capacity that has been locked in for a while at the 4 refineries. The question I will ask, and this is based on your place, is, do we fully understand why we've had issues, and what have we put in place to ensure that when these refineries do come back, that we do not go down this route again, that they will be operated efficiently and profitably in the long run? Mr. Diko, please.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Yes, of course, we all know the energy refineries go to the levels that they got. I have mentioned a few in my earlier presentation, and I don't want to go back through that route again. But most importantly, what is it that is being done that is new now? First, of course, as I mentioned, the PIA is in place. NNPC Limited has been unbundled to be a fully commercial entity. So you know what that means. We expect less government interferences in the activities, and then equally investment and finance can be sought by NNPC a bit more clearly now, so that it can continue to maintain operations across its value chain. And then, of course, the maintenance culture of the refineries will change. As I said earlier, we're going through the route of an operations and maintenance arrangement, but it is not going to be run by NNPC alone, but together with experienced providers, so that we can guarantee that sustainability and consistency in the way it is being run. And then, of course, as I said, thirdly, we hope to have ability to modernize these facilities with time, so that we can really bring them up to the levels that they should be. As I said, the newest of these refineries was built about 30 years ago. So you can imagine the upstairs in a lot of the things that has to be modernized. And then fourthly, the manpower development. I've mentioned that there's a lot of skill gap is required technically to be able to do things. So NNPC Limited is in that route now to make sure that we have relevant engineers, technicians that will undergo proper trainings around these businesses, so that they can continue to support the O&M contractor to run the facilities properly. And of course, we have to also be mindful of the other PIA's requirements, communities, support, of course, governance and accountability improvement and the likes. So basically the answer is the regime has changed. It is no more NNPC Corporation, but it's now NNPC Limited, guided commercially by the tenants of the PIA and other activities. We expect this will be fully impacted in the way the refineries are going to be run going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And while you're at it, I'll still follow up with you on manpower development. You did allude to this in your presentation. As far as the process industry goes, refining in Nigeria, specifically. NNPC probably has the most in terms of skill set over time. NNPC had a prevalence of skills in the industry. And most of those persons have retired now. And because the refineries have been shut in for a relatively long time as well, that has resulted in shortages that you alluded to. What are we doing to, or what in your view, should we be doing to build back capacity, skilled capacity in short order, as far as skill development go?
I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat, please?
Okay, so what I'm trying to get your thoughts on what the industry can do to quickly close the skill gap that we've noticed in refining, given that we've had moribund refinery in a period of time, and with that, most of the experienced people in the industry have either retired or dead. So what can we do, in your opinion, in a very limited time that we have to build back capacity?
Okay, yeah, you're very right, of course, but as it is today, part of what is being done is to leverage on the experience of those who have retired but are not tired. So quite a lot of staff who have retired voluntarily or statutorily and are still strong enough are still supporting the refineries activities as it is today, as we venture into the rehab projects. That is the first. And the second now is the thinking around getting younger technicians, engineers, and the likes, so that they can be leveraged and be trained as soon as possible to mine value from these experienced staff who are living but are still part of the system somehow. So it's a two-way thing. And then, as I said again, the O&M contract will probably bring in quite a lot of skills from somewhere to help build capacities that are required for those that are still limited and those that will be brought in to augment this skill gap. You know very well that our kind of business requires some time and training to be able to have the requisite skills to manage this process. So in summary, quite a lot of those who have left, who are still strong enough, are still supporting refineries somehow. And then there's this thought about getting younger people to learn, and then the O&M contractor too will bring in skills. So we emphasize that we'll be able to close this gap, probably not all of it, but most of it that are basically required for the successful and safe efficiency operations of these facilities. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll come to you, Edwin. I know you guys have done an extensive training of your people. What are your thoughts on how, as an industry, we might be able to close the skill shortages that we currently have?
Well, you know, there are various types of activities that goes on in a refinery. Take, for example, the maintenance activities. There are certain specific areas, rotating equipment and others. Maybe there is a shortage of skills, but there is a large amount of skill which is available, which we can just channel and use. Take, for example, when it came to commissioning the refinery, we had to bring in a lot of, as I explained, foreign contractors for construction. But when it came to commissioning, if you see, 90% of the commissioning contractors I'm using, they are all local contractors. And we have been quite happy with the skills which are available. But then when you come to the operations, say, let us say panel operators, I would not try to go and try with an inexperienced person. But you come to my next door, the fertilizer plants. You go to my central control room, 90% of the people in the panel are Nigerians who have been trained. We just started the fertilizer 2.5 years ago. And we also sent them overseas, trained, and they're able to manage the panel and operate. And we, as in cement, is not just operations, they have come to the level of heads of the departments, heads of businesses. My Tanzania operation is run by engineer Abdullah Baba, who is a Nigerian whom we picked up and who used to build our businesses, whom I in Cameroon, and today he's been running my business. He's a country head for my Tanzania business. So we have been able to not only train, but send them out as expatriates to various other countries. So it all depends on your interest, how we are going to develop. Cement, I sent them to India for training. I sent my power plant guys to US training. Mining, I sent my people to South Africa for training. Fertilizer, refinery, as I said, I sent them to operating plants for training. Right now in the fertilizer, even for refinery, for the panel operation, I'm planning to buy simulators. It's a huge investment. The total package is coming to almost $10 million. But bring it in and train. So the panel operators, how are we going to pilots? With simulators. They have to just get trained and go and sit and fly an aircraft. So same can train and put them into panel operation, they can run. So there has to be a huge emphasis and focus on training and development. And the only thing which we lack is an opportunity to gain the experience. You have brilliant engineers, highly competent personnel, just give them the exposure and opportunity. You can just sit and relax.
Okay, thank you very much, Edwin. Chike, anything?
Yeah, sorry about that. I think Dangote has done a brilliant job in terms of manpower development. Okay, and just like they've mentioned, this manpower is available, and Dangote, unfortunately, that is the case where there's a big brother to poach from their expertise to use for those who are going into modular refining. In addition to that, come with the water experience. There were two programs that Walter Smith ran, which helped to build up that local capacity. The first one was, of course, during the detailed design and construction phase for the refinery. We had engineers who went abroad and worked within V-Fuels yard in Houston to make sure that they could pick up a lot of the skills, including the person turned out to be the CEO of the refinery after I left. So they had been trained up there. And locally, we also had the O&M operators, Ocala, run the plant they were supposed to run the plant for 2 years, full force 2 years. But we had a program whereby we had Nigerian engineers hired in, and they twinned, so 2 Nigerian engineers to each Ocala engineer during the operations and maintenance phase, where the funding parties insisted that they needed the foreign consultants who were in the pre-commission to run the asset for some time. Shortly after 1 year, we were able to, demobilize some of the expatriates. Nigerians take full charge of certain modules within the refinery. And this expertise continues to grow. So it will continue to grow as more and more modular refineries on the task of building, training, both international and locally, and also leveraging on training programs that Dangote has. Last but not the least, I think SPE has a critical role to play here as well, in terms of beyond upstream and looking at training programs that can help to encourage engineers who want to get involved in the midstream and downstream.
Okay, thank you very much. And over to SPE. I hope someone is taking notes. You've got your work for you. There's a question here, and that is directed to Chike, but I think we can all take a stab at it. It said modular refineries can be scaled up to whatever levels you like, but under the policy, which is the modular refinery policy, the incentives only apply up to 30,000 barrels processing capacity. They also have the advantage of local distribution, blah, blah. So the question is, when you did that 30,000, this person is asking what happens. does the incentives go away above 30,000 barrel a day processing capacity?
Yes, at the moment they do. So the tax incentive example, will go away once you exceed 30,000 barrels per day processing capacity for a modular refinery. They come refinery, I would say. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what a modular refinery policy caps what you call a modular refinery to.
Okay. All right. So the next question again says, what are viable sales? This is access to market question here. And this will apply to, I think we will like to hear as well, as to how do you get your products into the market. It's, we are engineers, we're thinking in silos. So produce the product, but we need to have a line of sight to the market. What are your strategies? I'll start with Chike. What have your strategy from Watersmith on ensuring that evacuation is not a problem, that the market takes up what you produce?
Okay, thank you very much for that. Very quickly, there are certain products that are oversubscribed, and those are the ones that are really targeted at the domestic market. Household kerosene or dual-purpose kerosene, and AGO, automated gas oil. Now, those ones, you will not be looking for people to come and take those products. There are some who come in with, short-term contracts, mid contracts. There are spot trades as well. So spot trades means that the people will bring their tankers after paying up for products and then come and leave the products. For that purpose of picking up spot trades, Watersmith built a 25-ton truck pack so that you wouldn't have logistics challenges for trucks that would come in to pick up those products. Compact there, using a logistics process, they come and pick up their products and then they leave. So that is one method of moving the products. So that method, Watersmith transfers the risk of trucking those petroleum products to whoever has come to buy the product. Now, the nature of our roads, veteran pipelines like truck can be very dangerous. Okay. So where that road network has to be improved, and as Watersmith expands, they're intending to do that as well. They're intending to build a major 15-kilometer, access road from the nexus of the development around the Ibigwe refinery onto the express from Port Harcourt to Owerri on one side. Yeah. So they realize that they have to get involved in some of that infrastructural development, and they're able to draw down from the infrastructure fund through the payments that are made to the authority, NMDPRA. Now, the other products, some of the other products are export products, and there are some Nigerian exporters of these products, a couple of them, Stratos and Amplaya, that carry capacity for both heavy fuel oils and naphtha. Naphtha particularly needs, both of them actually need specialized storage. Like floating tank tops for naphtha and heated tanks for fuel oils. But they do have those storage capacities where they can store these products until they get export volume, and then they can export some of those products. That's how it works. So that's the distribution network that is available to modular refineries. Not really a pipeline network where petroleum products can be put on the pipeline, but most of it is veteran pipelines.
Yep. Thank you very much. And Mr. Edwin, I know that's it. Yes, we'd like to hear your thoughts on the same question. What are you doing to make their wet with Dangote products?
My boss, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, started as bringing in huge quantities of rice, vegetable oil, sugar for the country. So that's in his blood. And whatever we have done is basically backward integration of, we started with producing goods and distributing what we were importing and distributing. So as far as the market and the distribution side is concerned, we have a very good network. Already we have built up a huge list of both those who want to import our products from outside Nigeria, as well as the local distributors. And whatever we have produced, like yesterday, we had a meeting to see probably how we can slow down our sales, because we have already made quite a few forward booking. And export too, for example, aviation jet, the last vessel went to Caribbean islands, and the next vessel they are booking for US markets. So we have not found any major constraints so far. Both large exporters, like large traders, are also taking our product, but we are also dealing with medium-term and smaller distributors.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very good. Now, the other question I had for you was, given the refinery is a single train refinery, what specific uptime, or if you look at capacity utilization strategies, do you have to ensure that your maintenance, especially plant, it's top notch, that you don't take on shutdowns and which will take down the entire facility going when you're in operational mode? So the question really is, what specific have you put in place to ensure that you minimize downtime?
Well, there are a few things we have done. One is we have gone for the highest level of automation. And two, we went for very high metallurgy levels so that the corrosion and other things will not come down, having an impact. And we have built-in flexibility within the single train to a large extent. And of course, our plan is that our turnaround maintenance will come once in 4 years. So, normally most of the refineries go for TAM once in 2 years. This is designed once in 4 years, but we are quite reasonably confident that it can be stretched to 5 years. And whenever it goes down for maintenance, as one of the reasons we have built a huge tank farm capacity is the supply could be constant. We have a separate power plant exclusively pumping out the products from the storage, so the market will not have an impact. And we are quite confident with what we have done. We should be able to be reasonably good, because this is a question normally people raise. You went for a huge capacity with a single train refinery. What's going to be the challenge? And of course, the opportunity is when you start stretching and going for a higher capacity, your capital expenses gets limited. We first went and we took a study to do a 300,000 barrels per day refinery. Then we just kept it aside, waited for 2-3 years. Then we decided, okay, we'll go into the oil and gas industry again. And we went and did another study, feasibility for 400,000. But that is how we started. We signed our license for 400,000 with the licensors. But then during the engineering stage, we started increasing this one. We came to a stage beyond 650,000. The licensor said there is no engineering facility in the world where you can roll bigger equipment. So, okay, reactor regenerator. They said, okay, there is no plant in the equipment, the workshop in the world can roll thicker plates to a larger diameter. So we came to a point where there is an engineering constraint for manufacturing equipment beyond that level. That's where we stopped. But it also helped us to ensure that between the 400,000 to 650,000, the capacity is not proportional. It's quite limited. So that's one of the reasons why we went for a larger capacity.
Okay, thank you very much. One last question for you. Your diesel is in the market. Is your aviation fuel in the market?
Well, we have aviation fuel in the market. We have the diesel just coming to the market. And we expect by before the end of next month, we'll also have the gasoline into the market. And we'll also have the Euro diesel for export into the market. That is below 10 ppm.
Yep. Wow. Interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Edwin. One last word for Nigeria as we transition to a net exporter of petroleum products. Chike.
Well,
okay, go ahead, Edwin, please.
Let Mr. Chike take it up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let me point out one additional thing that, this is critical when you think about the entire value chain through the renewable climate change scenarios that are being built. We started looking at other technologies to provide petroleum products. And one of the early ones we've stumbled on is a gas to diesel technology that we're looking to implement side by side to our modular refinery, because those are low carbon petroleum products. We want to make a judgment about the quality. I think there are some examples of such plants having been built before. And remember that the focus would be that gas is the transition fossil fuel. Therefore, at some stage, I think it will be a decade or so, beyond about a decade, we'll have to seriously start thinking about low carbon petroleum products. Still petroleum products, but low carbon. And from what I've heard about what Dangote is doing, they are working to making sure that the carbon emissions from their refinery is kept as low as possible. But I would also suggest that we start looking at these kind of technologies at a large scale. We're going on a modular scale. We are modular always, which is that first, this thing will be about 2,500 barrels of diesel from, gas to diesel technology. And then we're also looking to see that there are other liquid energy products. Think hydrogen, liquefied natural gas. And we're looking at saying that this modular refineries, are there ways of adapting CDU? Of course, CDU has to be dismantled at some stage when you decide that you're going far away from, fossil fuels. But is there any way of using those same outside battery limit piping and storage tanks for use and conversion into storing things like liquid hydrogen?
Okay.
Yeah. So that you can paint a full train picture in going from modular refineries using fossil fuels to and using crude as the feedstock, using gas as the feedstock, to one where you convert all that equipment and everything, or most of it, so that you only demobilize and then rehabilitate the areas that CD use, and converting those to use in other liquid energy products. I'll just put them like that, renewable liquid energy products. And one of the ones that comes to mind is about the one around green hydrogen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chike. You've kind of tried to integrate renewable as we transition from fossil to renewables, how we might be able to repurpose infrastructure to be operational requirements. And that's a very key issue as we move along this path. But like I always say, Nigeria is hungry for energy. So it is when we have eaten enough that we'll now start asking whether there's meat in the meal, right? Right now, we will eat whatever food we get. The market is hungry. We need it for industrial growth. We need it for development. So I'll go to Mr. Diko. Finally, your last word to the country. For me, I'm excited. Yeah. Mr. Diko, please.
Yes.
What do you think? It's a good day for us that we are seeing this day. It's almost feel it that we're almost there where we will exit imports and ultimately become a net exporter. And that for me is the day the Nigerian oil industry started. It looks like we've been doing a crude export industry for a long time. So when we talk of an oil economy, to me, I think it starts the day we become a net exporter of products. What are your thoughts, please? Closing thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much. You've captured it all. This is the vision for NNPC Limited, where Nigeria will transit from an importer to exporter of petroleum products. All the strategies and activities are very much in place, both from the NNPC refineries, which, as I said, in the next couple of months, begin to commission them. And then the private investment, like Dangote Refinery and the modular refineries, where Mr. Nwosu have talked about. If you look at it all, in the next few months, probably by next year, we will have more than enough to satisfy the Nigerian requirement, and therefore we will be able to export quite a excess of these petroleum products that we need. It's a very, very good time for us in the industry. And, everything is being done to make sure that this is achieved. Please, as I said, NNPC Limited Management are really committed to this. And then all Nigerians are looking forward to this. And I assure you that everything is being done to get Nigerian refineries back to life in a sustainable and efficient operation mode. This is the vision, and this is clearly where Dangote refinery coming on stream slowly, and we wish well. Very good to mention that NNPC Limited owns substantial shares in Dangote, 20%, of course. So we're all looking forward to that day that, of course, we will be able to be a net exporter of petroleum products. The modular refineries are doing well, even though small in capacities, but they do fill in the void in some places. And we are very, very happy and encouraging that activity as well. So very happy to have been invited to this forum to share my thoughts and also to hear from the other people across the value chain. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. We really benefited from your insights and experience. And Mr. Edwin, back the last word.
Well, I would just like to touch base on what Mr. Nwosu pointed out. He talked about the utilization of gas and adding value. You know, we always talk about, oh, we are exporting crude and importing products. How are we going to add value? There is another energy, as you pointed out, gas. But we never talk about exporting gas and importing all the petrochemicals we make out of gas. So exporting gas is as good as exporting the crude oil. So that is going to be our focus too, to see how we can add more value within the country. And Nigeria has to focus to see how all these valuable things we have, gas, oil, and all the other, including agriculture, where we can become a net exporter of most of this. And, you know, when I came to the country, one of my colleagues who was working even before me, he used to say, I used to go to London and I used to change Naira into pound sterling, and I used to get 1 Naira to a pound sterling. And we look at where we are today. And the whole scenario can change because today we are just chasing dollars. And if we are going to add value and become a net exporter in most of the products, the scenario can completely change and Nigeria can get transformed. It will have a huge impact on the economy. So we are exporting, and the guys who are importing the gas are all adding value within their countries. So we can use it as an energy, we can use it. Take fertilizer. Fertilizer we were importing. Today, Nigeria is an exporter of fertilizer. The 2 fertilizer plants, Dangote and the Dorama, both of them are exporting. So everywhere you create employment within the country, you add value, contribute to your GDP, make extra foreign exchange income. So all these opportunities are available. The gas too, we can convert to a lot of petrochemicals, or even as a use as an energy for producing various commodities and also generate power. So there is a brilliant future for Nigeria if we just try to add value to all these commodities which are available and become net exporter in all these items. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we've had an excellent session this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Diko, Mr. Nwosu, and Mr. Edwin for your time, your insight, and your ability to share it. We know he's a busy most person, so we really do not take this for granted that you found time to talk to us. And basically, I can say for everyone here, we have a better appreciation of the domestic refining landscape than we did 2 years ago. So thank you once more. We do appreciate your sacrifice and commitment to this. And to the audience, I will say a big thank you. It's 2 p.m. Most people have not had lunch, so we gotta let you go. So thank you, and I will hand back to the MC to wrap this up. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for that session. We will go on right into the photo session, so everyone is able to turn on their cameras while we still have the speakers with us, and Odion will sort of anchor that for us. Let's just all kindly turn on our cameras, big smiles.
Okay, thank you very much, MC. Big smiles, you heard that. Turn on your cameras and put on your big smiles, and let's go click it. Thank you. I'll just click with your smile on your faces. I will just click and move on to the next page and keep clipping. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. All of you turning on your cameras. Thank you. I see you all. Okay, next page now. Clicking. Thank you. Thank you. I'll go to the last page. Okay, clicking and clicking and clicking. Okay, like the moderator said, I think lunch is served. So let's go to have our lunches. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will pass on now to Asana to give us the closing remark and vote. Thanks. All right, Asana, the floor is yours. Asana is our special projects chairperson at SPE Lagos section.
Thank you very much, Olamide. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been such a wonderful forum. And of course, there's no duty that is more urgent than that of returning thanks. So I'm truly delighted to be delivering the vote of thanks. On behalf of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, Lagos section, and on my own behalf as the chairperson of the planning committee and all members of the planning committee, I would like to thank all of our guest speakers today for delivering a wonderful presentation on how to build a sustainable refinery capacity in Nigeria. Thank you, Chikeze also. Thank you, Engineer Medico, and thank you, Mr. B.G. Hedwin. SPE Lagos will definitely follow through all the practicable solutions highlighted today on how to build conventional refineries and modular technology solutions, and of course, follow through all the strategies highlighted for continuous improvement of the existing refineries. Thank you to our great moderator, Mr. Joe, our MC, Olamide, and our fallback MC, Odion. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to all our council members present today, SPE directors, SPE board members. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Vice President. We have the Vice Council Person, Mrs. Amina Damadi from Abuja. Thank you, Ma, for joining us. We would also like to say thank you to all companies that join us today: Shell Petroleum, Producing, Chevron, Mobil, Baker, Hackweed Energy, Seplat, and all the companies that join this forum today. We truly appreciate you. We also have some SPE members from South Africa. Thank you very much. For us in the upstream sector, we seem to focus on drilling and completion of best-in-class wells. But we have realized that we also need to support the downstream sector. So today we've learned a lot. So thank you once again to our great speakers. Odile, can you go to the next slide, please? So for upcoming SPE programs, we have the YP Forum on the 25th of May. This forum is for young professionals who are striving for excellence in the energy industry. We have invited industry leaders who will share insight on how to achieve excellence in the energy sector. So YPs, mark your calendar. The venue is going to be at 4 Point by Sheraton. The time is 9 a.m. Also, we have SPE football tournament on the 25th of May, and also the golf tournament on the 31st of May at the Ikoyi Club Lake. We also have our annual general meeting award coming up August 3rd. So please come and unwind, connect, and network with outstanding professionals. Next slides.
Yeah, Asana, sorry, just to make a clarification, the football tournament for 25th of May is from 3 p.m. at the AstroTurf, Ikoyi. Yeah, just to make that clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the updates. Next slide, please. Are you having any challenges? I think I can run it from here. So I think the next slide is just for you to connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go to the next slide. So, Audion, next slide. Okay, so please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And for all inquiries on SPE registration or membership, so please contact Audion and also Adewale and Jackson. Well, we all know the value of being an SPE member. So SPE can, show you, can help you increase your technical capabilities and also show you to because we organize different technical symposiums and also technical sections and trainings. So please join SPE today. Thank you all, and please have the rest of your day. Thank you so much. So that is all. Thank you all for attending. We truly appreciate you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's a wrap. Bye.